When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Smokey the Bear.
Then you know why Smokey tells you when he sees you passing through. Remember, please be careful, it's the least that you can do.
What you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire.
After 80 years of learning his wildfire prevention tips, Smokey Bear lives within us all. Learn more at smokeybear.com. And remember,
only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Outside is where winter adventure unfolds. On frozen lakes, icy landscapes, and snow-covered slopes. Feeling the cold air rush by as you race downhill. The freedom of gliding with ease and the warmth of being together. From epic sled rides to the fun of ice fishing, it's all right here beneath Nebraska skies. Start your winter adventure at yournebraskaparks.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Associations and this station.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
The Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council present the story of Tom and Levi.
Tom is the smartest man I know. He's been a professor at 2 major universities, been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, he told me that he was having problems in his classes. I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. And he was telling them that he was doing it as a favor to them. But I think in reality, he just wanted to get out of there. I was really starting to worry because I saw something was wrong.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me, and my love for him was just immense.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
If you're considering a career in broadcasting, 1620 The Zone and the Nebraska Broadcasters Association Foundation can help you become part of this exciting field. 3 $2,000 scholarships are available to 4-year college and university students who will have completed 30 credits as of May 31st, 2025. Let us help you reach your career goals. For more information, contact 1620 The Zone or click ne-ba.org. Application deadline is March 1st, 2025.
Host is roasting every morning. Host is roasting every day.
At Host Coffee, every cup of coffee served comes with a promise. A promise of quality, innovation, and a dash of fun. Ensuring your workday is as delightful as your coffee break. Call Host Coffee today.
Proudly serving Nebraska since 1972. Host Coffee is always roasting something good for you.
Bankers Trust is now open in Omaha, privately owned and community focused. We can help you reach your financial goals with our full suite of banking, lending, and wealth management services. Visit us at 192nd and Dodge or online at bankerstrust.com.
1620 The Zone. Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is
Morning. Welcome.
Your button broken again?
I was pushing.
Okay.
I was pushing.
We're back.
I was ding, 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 ding. I'm glad it finally on the 8th ding went. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in on a Tuesday. It's a hoodie and shorts day. We're back, baby.
Well,
we
hoodie and shorts for two of us.
Jimmy's not in solidarity.
Do I at least get
Jimmy's
credit
not
for
part of
wearing
the
the
show.
T-shirt?
No, you always wear a T-shirt.
I know. It's hot in here.
Also, too, you're opposite of what we said because we said
Does Nebraska get credit for only giving up 49 last night?
hoodie.
There you go.
Hoodie
Perspective.
We said hoodie and shorts. Okay, you are wearing shirts and sweatpants. So if anything, you're anti against
I'm not
what
wearing
we are doing
sweatpants
here.
today. That'd be way too hot.
I mean, we're hoodie and shorts.
Yeah.
I got the dogs
But
out.
I take the L. I dropped the ball, and Matt did let the dogs out.
Dogs are barking. Oof.
Credit goes where credit should be
You
due.
were curious. You're like, I bet you were like, I wonder how hairy those legs are.
Yeah,
you
I've
haven't
seen enough.
You
I've
haven't
seen enough.
You haven't said a word. You looked at them and you were speechless.
You got a really good look on today. You got the very athletic hoodie,
the red pops.
You got the black running shorts, black shoes.
I have it. This
I feel
is
like
like
I'm doing a game. I'm describing what the teams are wearing.
this is like the most matching I've ever done. This might be the best.
Really?
This might be the
Wow.
best outfit I've worn to work.
All right.
all year.
Hey,
we're growing.
It's
We're
the little
growing.
things. All right. Welcome in. It's a Tuesday edition of Gary and Matt. Jimmy is kind of here.
I know.
Half out.
I got plenty of sleep last
You're
night
not a team
because I was
player.
nodding
Why?
off on the couch.
Dude, I stayed up and supported your team. I got home from PBA last night, and they had just gone to halftime of KU Colorado. I stayed up because I was gambling on the game.
Oh.
And KU was only up 2 with about 3.5 to go and covered the 6.5, so thank you very much.
Damn.
Yeah, KU won. Hunter Dickinson actually played pretty well. When KJ Adams hits shots, KU is going to be fine. But, man, I think that team hates each other.
Yes.
I think they
I know
spent
that
way
for a
too much
fact.
money on AJ Store, and everybody knows it. And, boy, they
Yeah.
are grinding. So, speaking of that,
Yeah.
so here's what I was thinking last night.
It's a common theme. Common theme of this show.
actually
Spending
am
too much
wondering how
money
you
on
spin
people
this.
and everybody not liking each other because of it. That's something we could get into.
So 15 minutes before tip last night, walked across the street.
Gorgeous
Into
night.
the old Pinnacle Bank Arena. Place was bumping. Nebraska basketball fans deserve better. They support the program like none other. That
Great
place
crowd.
was loud. That place was waiting to explode. The roof was ready to come off. People understood the assignment last night. People were in it to win it. And then that game unfolded. But I could tell you, I should have tweeted this out because I didn't tweet it all during the game last night. I just watched the game as a fan.
Yeah, typically you're good. You are good for like 2 or 3 tweets in a game.
well, I
You're
have to
not
tell
a
you,
massive
so-
tweeter, but you're good for 2 or 3.
So Nebraska football, I'm like working.
Yeah.
Nebraska basketball is like my outlet where I love hoops, and I don't get to make as many games as I have in the past.
You enjoy a basketball
But
game.
I keep the tickets, and I like going to the games.
Yeah.
So I like to go to the games and enjoy it. Just sit there. There's a good group of people that sit around me. Basically, we're doing our show during the game.
Yeah.
Well, I walked in 15 minutes last night, and there's 15 minutes on the clock, and teams are warming up, and I see who 2 of the 3 officials are, and DJ and Kelly together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, we are going to be in one for one tonight. And then that was my pregame. My postgame, while we're traveling back on I-80, you know what? There's quite a few people from Omaha that go to Lincoln for games. Not as many as in the past, but there was a good amount of traffic coming back.
Sure.
And all I could think about is 2 things. One, what if that was the first time you ever watched college basketball last night and you just happened to take in the Michigan-Nebraska game?
Yeah.
Or what happens if you are the lone individual that exists in this universe that somehow, back in the day, you found your way into State College and you watched Iowa and Penn State play a 6-4 football game, and you're like, you know what? I've had some health issues. I've been in a coma. Yeah, I'm back. I want to go to a college basketball game. I want to go to a place that has a great atmosphere. Let's go to PBA. And you watched that last night.
Well, how long are you in a coma for? Because if
you've been in a coma for a while.
Because if you've been in a coma for 20 years, I don't think you missed out on anything.
Well, if you were in a coma for 20 years, you probably came back like, Jesus, is Barry Collier coaching last night?
What do you mean this is a conference game?
Real quick, just talk about that. Michigan had 0.71 points per possession. Nebraska had 0.67 points per possession. Yep. It is the first game all year in NCAA Division I basketball, not just Power 5. Every game where both teams averaged under 0.75 points per possession. It is literally, by definition, the worst offensive game the entirety of the NCAA Division I basketball calendar.
It deserved all those reviews, which
So
elicit a lot of F-bombs.
So the average in that category of points per possession in a Division I basketball game this year is 1.38. So going off the numbers you just gave, that shows you how putrid that game was last night when it came to shooting. Because if you're a defensive guy, if you were wearing a black shirt last night, you're like, wow, okay. There's only two guys on Michigan's side that play defense, and they're both 7 foot.
Yeah.
Nebraska was Nebraska last night. There's so much about that game, but I wonder, can it be a sloppy slog fest and still be entertaining? If you're a Michigan fan, you're like, hey, I don't rank my children. I don't care if one is ugly and one is beautiful.
Wins or wins.
Wins or wins.
Yeah.
But last night, that was
a bummer.
That was exactly who Nebraska basketball is, guys.
I was excited.
In 24-25. They have an identity of defense. When they're engaged, they play hard on that end of the floor. And then on the other end, they are so offensively challenged with situational awareness. And they rely and stand around and watch one guy who, he scored 1,000 points in 2 years at Nebraska do something.
He was good.
It's kind of Nebraska played closer to their identity than Michigan did last night.
I don't entirely disagree with you in the fact that this is a defensive-minded team and that they're supposed to win games like that where they are really good defensively and offensively. Every point is a grind and every possession is a bit of a struggle. 46 points is not the idea. Like, this team has scored, has had the ability to score 70, 80 points, like, fairly consistently. Like, yesterday, like, I get what you're saying, like, yeah, this is who they are. Like, they play really good defense, and they're going to slog it out, and they rely a lot on Williams. But yesterday was ugly and disgusting. And, God, I hope it was an anomaly. And for the next 3 games, we don't have to watch that. Like, I get what you're saying, but yesterday, I cannot stress, like, for you, maybe it was like an entertaining game because you were there and there were 17,000 people cheering at the top of your lungs.
Yes.
Okay. For me and for Jimmy and for everyone who had to watch that atrocity at home, it was not enjoyable. It was a waste of time.
I was so excited.
It was frustrating. The amount of times that I yelped or like gasped or put my head in my hands was ridiculous. Okay. The over didn't hit on the points total yesterday for that game, but if you were doing the over-under for how many times I was exasperatedly disgusted, it hit actually 8 minutes could go in the first half, okay? So good for you and good for the 16,000 people who were there, who thought it was entertaining. That was an S-hole. That was an S show. That was terrible, okay?
All right, you can have your 2 hours back. I'm telling you.
The kids were great. The students were in black. They were ready.
Yeah,
I wanted to be them.
Matching. There you go, Jimmy. That was the
they
best
were in
part
black.
Of the game. The students were matching.
I thought they were going to wear black uniforms. I thought they listened to the show yesterday, and then they came out with those.
No, it was, like that was a good atmosphere in there that just in a grind of a game where Nebraska has won those games. So that's why I say it's their identity.
Yes.
Didn't they have a game against UCLA that was like that, but they had more points?
But they had way more points.
But the shooting wasn't as poor.
Shooting was terrible.
Here was how this game unfolded. So Nebraska would play really good defense. Now, remember, these two teams were combined 34 of 123 from the floor. They were 11 of 55 combined from three-point range. I thought it was entertaining. But Nebraska would play really, really good defense, and they would wall up. And outside of the 2 7-footers last night, Michigan was – now, they were missing a guy, but they were kind of lost. But then Nebraska would – there would be a miss and Nebraska get a rebound. Then Nebraska would come down the floor. Michigan would play really good defense. But the difference was Michigan's shots made sense.
Yes.
A great majority of Nebraska's shots last night made absolutely no sense. Like, they also had trouble at the rim. The length of Michigan really bothered them. But some of the shots that Nebraska took last night with either a guy draped on them or just an odd Juwan Gary falling in love with the three, embrace the two, leave the three at the doorstep. It was like mind-boggling.
So in the first half, I want to give Nebraska a lot of credit. In the second half, I don't think this was as prevalent. But in the first half, I just think Michigan was just kind of missing more shots than it was necessarily Nebraska playing really, really good defense. It was crazy. If you watch the Michigan offense operate and watching the Nebraska offense operate, if we cut off the telecast when the shot went up, if we just the shot goes up and it just went blank, you would think that Michigan was winning by 20 with the quality of look and how the offense was running. They just weren't hitting shots. Now, credit to Nebraska in the second half. I really do think it was more so their defense than Michigan's inability on offense.
Yeah, but Michigan won a game where they didn't score a field goal in the last 4:25. That stings. That stings.
It was, at one point, I was like, man, I'm really going to regret saying on the radio over and over and over again that I missed Bear K Buchton Joe. I mean, that was...
We got to have some speaks there.
That was disgusting. Now, he did a pretty good job on defense.
He was pretty good.
He did a pretty good job on defense. And you know what? I thought that rebounding was going to be a massive problem last night. It really wasn't. Nebraska did a pretty damn good job at clearing the boards and not allowing Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden to get second chance points. But, man, Bear K's shot selection was awful. His inability to finish at the rim was terrible. Juwan Gary, first off, I was surprised that when I looked at the box score that Juwan Gary took 13 shots. I was like, wow, I thought this guy had disappeared for a lot of the game. And then to see, 2 of 13, no surprise, obviously. And once again, that guy's inability to finish at the rim throughout the entirety of the year is quite disgusting. And then he went back to the 3-point shooting, Juwan Gary, which we saw when did we see Juwan Gary shoot a lot of threes and miss them? Oh yeah, when they lost 6 games in a row. I thought we were past that. I thought we were past that charade, but clearly we're not, because old habits never die hard, and this team never learns, and which is why they are currently playing themselves out.
Well, no, they still have a path.
They still have a path.
There's the only
but
thing
when you
that
lose 2 games like that,
okay, so they're
games like
they're
that. You lost
fortunate.
three
They're
of your
fortunate.
last 4.
They played themselves into Dayton. Okay, I'm not. They're fortunate enough.
When you play,
they're fortunate enough they have the quad 1 and quad 2 that there is still a path for them to be in the NCAA tournament. And you can say, well, they don't look like an NCAA tournament team. Well, yeah, but you know what? Have you looked at the bottom of the NCAA field of 68? That's why Nebraska is still hanging around the 10 or the 11. But the problem is, last night would have, as I said yesterday, would have basically locked you up into the tournament. Is the only thing that is left is hurt. So Minnesota at home, at Ohio State, and Iowa. But there's still a path for them to be in the NCAA tournament. And you can hit me with, they're not an NCAA tournament team. Well, you know what? Probably 62, 63, 64, 65, 66 are all going to be, I don't know that they're an NCAA
I can make an argument
team.
that all the way up to the 8th seed aren't NCAA tournament teams.
Well, I don't know about that.
I mean, there are some teams that are playing some pretty bad basketball that are going to end up being into the NCAA tournament that even go up to an 8 seed. So
I don't know. I'd be in the 8 category.
Illinois is not playing like an NCAA tournament team. UConn has played some pretty piss poor basketball as of late. New Mexico, Gonzaga hasn't been all that great. I
don't know about that.
There have been, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the NCAA tournament this year is incredibly top heavy, which is why the bubble has been absolutely disgusting. Okay.
The problem with a game like last night where you have an opportunity to put a lock is you're going to play 3 games where you don't really grab momentum. Who knows what Ohio State will be like next week in Columbus? Are they already going to be out of the mix? Are they going to get knocked out? So that game, they're not even close to the bad side of the bubble. They're not even in the tournament. So you can't pick up any momentum. So all that is left is hurt. But I still think if you go 2-1, if you get to 9-11 in that conference, they're going to find a way to put you in the NCAA tournament because you look at their quad 1s and quads 2, that is keeping them alive. But the frustrating part of last night is Michigan's not going to play like that
ever again.
And they walked into your building on a sleepy Monday, but the building was bumping, and they couldn't hit shots. I brought up that stat yesterday about against Michigan State. They couldn't hit jumpers, and then they couldn't hit threes. Look in the first half. The only thing that was keeping Michigan alive was the fact that nobody besides Bryce Williams would do anything.
Yeah.
But Michigan was 1 of 14 from three-point range. Now, Dusty May, I thought, did a really good job on Bryce Williams in the second half, which leads me to this point at the end. So this is how strange that game was. Think about it. We had a hook and hold on Juwan Gary, which I'm noticing is being called more later in the season.
Sure.
I hadn't seen it. I had one on Saturday night in the Omaha game. The first time I've seen it all year. So you had a hook and hold.
Yeah, there was another one I saw on TV
and then
too.
Michigan misses 2 free throws.
Frickin' for chicken.
Then Michigan turns it over in a span of 5 seconds. And then through it all at the end of the game, Nebraska got a couple of opportunities either to win it or tie it. But here's what I think happened at the end. Not the Berke shot at the end, but Bryce at the end. So Bryce, if he's not all Big Ten, we got to have some speaks.
Sure.
But I think the ball knowers out there know how much Bryce means to Nebraska, and that he's one of the scorers in college basketball.
Yeah.
So Michigan did a great job on him in the second half, where they made him work on both ends of the floor. So ball screens, things like that. Like he had to work harder to get a shot. So he brings the ball down the floor, and Michigan's back on the trailer, and Wolf drops into the paint. Bryce dribbles, and remember, you're only down 1. You're in the bonus. Your team is 6 of 27 from 3. I think Bryce with the basketball with about 8 seconds to go, he saw Wolf, and he was on E, and he turned and he flipped it to Esijan, because I would have thought that there was still a lot of time to go, and you didn't need a 3. They got a good look. It's a make-or-miss sport.
They got a really good look.
And Esijan couldn't get it to go. But I think if Bryce is not on E, he makes a U-turn, and they still had plenty of time to reset, because when he flipped the ball to Connor Esijan, there were 6.6 seconds to go. So they still had time, but I think he was gassed. And we all say, why didn't you just go and attack the rim? Because you know what? You might draw a foul. And Bryce's free throw king, I think he was on E. I don't think he could have got the legs to get going downhill. And Esijan was right there next to him. Bryce on his right side saw Wolf in the lane. Left side saw Esijan wide open, and he could ball flip it to him and also be a screener, and it just didn't go down.
A lot of people
But a hell of a night for Bryce Williams.
A lot of people were kind of getting on him or dragging on Bryce for not taking it to the hoop. I actually thought it was the right play. I don't hate that shot at all. I don't dislike that shot. They were moving. People were just like, oh, it was a transition 3. Connor Esijan has made that shot this year. And he's made some fadeaway shots. He's made some on-the-run shots. Like, that guy is a shot maker, okay, from the 3-point line. Problem is, though, is that there have been multiple times this year where there have been big shots, big momentum swinging shots that Connor Esijan has taken, and he's missed them. Mm-hmm. One of them was earlier in the game when they were up 15-14, and Nebraska was going on a bit of a run, and he had a wide open 3. And if he hit that 3, that place would have absolutely exploded. It would have been 18-14. Michigan might have taken a timeout. And there would have been a massive swing in the first half. Who knows? Maybe you make a couple more shots after that. Regardless of the fact, I don't hate the shot. He misses it. It was one of those shots where after he took it and I put my head in my hands, the whole season flashed by. Because I was like, this is the moment. Like, if they end up, and you're right, they have a path. Not denying that they don't have a path to the NCAA tournament. They very easily could win these next 3 games, get in, maybe even get themselves out of Dayton. But that's a shot where if it doesn't go, because just as easily as they can go 3-0, they can go 0-3 in the stretch. Okay? Mm-hmm. They can.
Oh, yeah.
And if that shot...
they're game to game.
They've always been a game to
game. They're a team. They're a roller coaster, man. Look at Raleigh Worcester. First half, Raleigh Worcester. Second half, Raleigh Worcester. The whole thing is a roller coaster. You're absolutely right. They could go 3-0. They could go 0-3 just because that's who Nebraska is.
That's who they are. And so That shot, though, if they are to not make the NCAA tournament, is going to be the one that we relate to the rest of the season of what if that went in? What if you hit that shot? What if we won that game? Because that was a good shot, and that was a good opportunity. And it just the entire game, like, man, I really can't give you that much credit. Like, I can say, look, they play good defense, but you're not going to get too many positive notes out of me when you score 46 points in one game, when 3 of your starters combine to have as many points as they do turnovers, when you have 3 different dudes on your team who get significant minutes who had as many turnovers or more turnovers as they did points.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get a lot of positive notes from Matt McMaster when you play a game like that.
But isn't their offense? So last night,
their offense is bad, Gary. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
No, they're not going to shoot like that putrid. But that's what their offense is. You watch the game in the first half. They do this. This happens all the time. They got one guy.
46 points does not happen all the time.
But I'm explaining how the offense works.
Sure.
They have one guy that is going. Okay, he is the only true scorer that is on the floor. Why 46 is bad, right?
Yes.
But the way Nebraska played offense last night, now again, they were awful shooting the basketball, but just the concept of how they attack offense is who they are.
Yeah.
Who they are. They're not built this year where they have multiple shooters on the floor. They don't have a secondary guard that can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. So what they do is Bryce Williams, when Bryce Williams starts the game hot, it's almost the worst thing that could happen in Nebraska because 4 guys on the floor stand around and they watch and they wait for Bryce to make a play. That's either good or bad because Bryce is on a different level. But that happened last night. He got going. Nobody else was going. And then guys got spooked, man. The 2 7-footers. And thankfully, Nebraska had an open window when Wolf got in foul trouble and they couldn't take advantage of it, is guys then weren't looking for their shot, especially, they scored what? What they scored? 10 points in the last 15? No, 10 points in the last 15 minutes of the first half? Or was it 15 in the last 10?
No.
Okay, 10 in the last 15. The guys weren't even looking for their shots. So they are offensively so challenged and so poor with situational awareness that's been there all year.
Sure.
And then last night when nobody's making shots, it is even more glaring. Bryce was pretty good in the post game, and because that's you got 18 of your team's 21 in the first half, and you're down. You're down. You got no help. But here's another part of frustrating thing, and I'll let you finish.
Yeah.
Is at the end of the night, as poor as Nebraska was on offense, and as smart as they were on defense, because they played hard. They were switching, they were communicating. And Michigan didn't have almost as many open looks at the rim as Nebraska did. Nebraska still got 2 opportunities at the end. Actually, they got 3 because why was Michigan fouling Bryce with 12 seconds? Michigan doesn't have an elite free throw shooter. So I'm thinking, what are they doing?
Yeah.
They're going to get into a free throw shooting contest. Michigan doesn't have an elite free throw shooter, and you just put one of the best free throw shooters at the line. Nebraska had 3 opportunities at the end. They had that. They had the Essesian 3. And then the Bryce Drew play, Michigan kind of defended it well.
Yeah.
But Nebraska got a really good look at the end.
Oh, yeah. With Burke? Yeah. That's not the guy you want shooting it, but that's the shot you want.
I think he was the guy because of the height on the floor.
Yeah.
The Bryce Drew plays, you just throw it up, and so he's the guy that can go up and
I think he was looking to give it to Bryce, though, at first, and then Bryce was like, no, you got to turn around and shoot it, and then he turned around and he shot it. Another thing, too, and you're absolutely right about how this offense operates. Totally correct. And that's actually a really good point you make with the whole when Bryce is going, that might be bad for the team because then the team thinks that they can allow him to create shots, not only for himself, but for them. And then there's no movement, right? But this all tracks back to, man, there are some of these guys on this team who think they are way better than what they are. Because at the end of the game, you had, first off, we didn't mention this, Andrew Morgan missing that turnaround baby hook in the paint killed everything. That was such a momentum swing. They would have went from being up 41 to 40, and then it turned into 42-39.
Great observation.
Secondly, why is Raleigh Wooster and Burke Buchton gel? taking 3-point shots with 4 minutes to go at the end of the game. And not system 3-point shots, not, hey, we moved the ball around really, really well and we found you in a corner. No, I have the ball. I'm taking 4 dribbles and I'm just going to put it up there. You have not only not made that shot all day, you haven't made that shot all year. And they were taking those shots. And then shout out Sam Hoiberg, because Sam would be getting the same yelling and screaming that those two are getting. But do you know what Sam did? Sam made his shots. And that's basketball. When you make your shots, people don't get mad at you. Okay? Like, they did not make their shots. And then Fred in the postgame. And I like Fred. Okay, I like Fred. I don't think Fred should get fired. I don't think Fred should be on the hot seat, anything like that. I think he's done a fine job over the last 2.5 seasons. But when he goes up to the podium and the first thing he says is, I'm proud of this team, how fragile of a locker room do you have that you got to say that I'm proud of this team? Because I think he's saying he's proud of this team because he doesn't want to get on them and bag on them, because he knows he's going to need them for 3 more games. This team cannot be allowed to go back into the culture shock or the bad culture they had during the 6-game skid, that he's got to stand on the podium and then after a putrid performance say, I'm proud of them. That's a joke. That's a joke.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on behind the scenes that he would say that. That'd be you speaking to that.
I know. That's me speaking. I mean, to say you're proud of them after that, I'm sorry. No.
All right. Coming up in about an hour, Sam McEwen will join us from the Omaha World Herald. I'm sure he has a thought. A ball knower last night. 49-46.
Terrible. It's terrible.
A win is a win, right? I'd love to hear Michigan overreaction this morning. They're probably not happy. They won. They got to 13 conference wins.
They'll either spend a lot of time on this game in Michigan radio, or they'll spend very little time on this game.
Probably spend no time.
So
then football.
Was it Roddy Gale that ended up being the leading scorer?
No, I think it was the other point guard. No, it was
Robinson?
Gale with 12. Donaldson had 11.
Is he still running his mouth?
Probably, yeah. I saw that. I saw the tweets. I mean, we didn't get a lot of it on the broadcast, but I saw the tweets about it.
Oh, him and Bryce were yapping all night, especially in the first half. It kind of actually fueled Bryce, and Donaldson wouldn't shut up. Like Bryce would go even after the tomahawk dunk.
Yeah.
Like he was still chirping at him as they were coming back up the floor. It's kind of entertaining.
That was a sick dunk. That was a great sequence too.
Man,
awesome. There's a running start. Oh,
there is an all Big Tenner there, but let's hope the people that are voting no ball and find a way to put Bryce on the all Big Ten team. Sam will join us at 7:30. Brian Christopherson stops by at 9. It's a big day for college football because the Big Ten and the SEC are getting together today, and they'll announce what they want to do. They're also the Big Ten may announce something that is in line with the college football playoff that I absolutely love. I think it's great what the Big Ten is doing. That's the lineup brought to you by the rooferees at John Higgins Weather Guard. Higgy did not work last night. You had DJ and Kelly working. That was quite the show.
See, I saw DJ make one call, and I go, "Oh, he's working today." And then I saw Kelly.
Which particular call did he make? The one where Mia got popped in the nuts at one end of the floor, and then coming down the other end of the floor, bumped into a guy who went.
It was actually the Asian block. That was that one. I go, oh, DJ's working tonight. I already saw Kelly. I see Kelly right away. As soon as tip off happens, I go, oh, there's Pfeiffer, right? But then the Asian block happened. I go, oh, there's DJ.
Wow, that was like I after the game, just going through social media, I saw the replay of that.
It was disgusting.
Ooh.
It was.
That's a little rough one.
Literally, what is Connor supposed to do? He literally just got, and he wasn't even moving. He was just standing there, like he was waiting to go and get his man, and his man just.
Yeah, welcome to the DJ and Kelly show.
Yeah, brutal.
Can you imagine if those two were working the Texas Tech Houston game, which was just a battle?
47 free throws in that one. Absolutely disgusting. Hey, can you imagine if High Knees was the third referee of that game? Oh, my God. That's the Avengers, right? DJ, Kelly, and High Knees. Those are the three. That'd be one hell of a game.
Interesting night at Pinnacle Bank Arena. We'll take your thoughts, reaction. We'll get through the stream. We'll get through Twitter. We'll get through this together because Minnesota is on the horizon for Nebraska, who still has a path.
They still have a path.
There's a path. It may be in Dayton. Omaha and Nebraska both playing in Dayton. That'd be a banger.
That would be a banger.
You can
G Sharp and
join
KP in Dayton. I'm there for that content.
KP was a little bit nervous before last night's game.
He knew.
I didn't hear any of the radio call, of course. I wonder how him and Jake handled the end. like Kent's gotten really invested of we got to get to the NCAA tournament.
Got to get him away.
Like in his calls.
Yeah, man. He wants it.
That had to be I just think that was from the radio standpoint, that would be a very difficult game to do play-by-play because there was no flow.
Yep.
Oh,
I was kind of entertaining because you're like, okay, what wild thing could happen next? But there was no flow to the game.
You blink and
we've
there was
called
a loose
those.
ball. I mean, the amount, seriously, there was one. I think there was a stretch in the second half where there was 4 possessions in a row where the ball got loose.
All right,
2 of 3 people were asleep by about just watching with every stoppage. Come on.
Yeah, we also had the end of the game that the fun thing about college basketball, how the end of the games take a little bit long.
Yeah. The minute 55, and we're reviewing things, and then we're following. And good. Was there a broadcast that was supposed to happen after the Nebraska game too? Because that definitely went over. I mean, they all
FS2
402-951-1620. You can also hit us up in the Equitable Bank inbox. Gary or Matt at 1620thezone.com. We're off and rolling on the morning after. Nebraska, Michigan played a football score at a basketball game last night. Actually scored fewer points than the great Mick Cronin, Tim Miles, Nebraska-Cincinnati game.
Oh.
Also, Tim Miles' assistant, Craig Smith, in the news yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that.
Got screwed by a bad AD. We'll get into all that and much more. Nebraska, Mike and Andrew. That's a great way to start off a Tuesday morning after that thing last night. We'll get to them when we come back on 1620 The Zone. All right, 6 of 28 from three-point range last night for
That good?
Nebraska.
Thought it was worse.
You know what? If they were 7 of 28, we'd be talking about a different thing. Did they need a 3 down 1, 8 seconds to go?
I think your observation on Williams being on empty definitely is one that has to come from someone who's in the building, and someone who's been watching that. And I think that's a great observation. At the same time, some people didn't like the shot. I was totally fine with the shot. I was totally okay with how the game was flowing.
Mm-hmm.
It was open. It wasn't to a guy who doesn't shoot threes. It was to a guy whose literal only job is to spread the floor and hit those types of shots. You had your best shooter in that situation taking an open shot with not a lot of people around him. I don't hate it. He just didn't make it.
It's a make or miss sport. I mean,
he didn't make it.
Look we're having a different discussion of a couple of weeks ago. Guy hits a 3 at the end of regulation in that building wearing orange and blue.
Yeah.
It's a make or miss sport, and when you're on the edge like Nebraska was last night in a game where if you would have won that game last night, you would have got out of town. You said Lancaster County authorities would be coming after us because we just stole that basketball game, and you wouldn't make any excuses.
You don't
You'd be like,
apologize for winning.
Hey man, it's March. It's getting to March. We got to win any game we can. But that's the frustrating thing about last night. It was there. You played well enough on one end of the floor to hold Michigan to give me that stat again. Points per possession for Michigan?
0.71. 0.71.
That's not good.
Michigan also, you brought up a great stat that they average 59% from 2 points, right? From their 2-point field goal percentage was 59%. They couldn't make anything around the basket yesterday. I mean, and what did we say going into the game yesterday? The rebounding. You got to rebound. Yep. You got to have. They did it. They did what they needed to do on the defensive end. They just could not hit a shot, and it was just the offense at times was janky. It was just like
That's
bumper.
A great word.
It was bumper cars.
Isn't it?
At some
someone
point.
said that.
I remember there was this one possession in the first half where Bryce had the ball, and Bryce came around his screen, grabs the ball, and then there's another screen on the other side, and Asijan came in and he cut, and then I think it was Morgan. He came in and he cut, and it was like they kind of robotically did it, like Asijan cut. And then Morgan was like, all right, Asijan's done cutting, then I'm going to cut. And it was just like, there was no flow. It was zero flow. It was like, oh, he's supposed to do that. He's supposed to. If you watch Michigan offense, there was zero of that. It was a lot of ping, ping, boom, boom, here.
Yeah.
It's almost as sometimes Nebraska grabs the ball and they go, all right, Gary, you're off the ball. Your turn to move. Okay, you're not open. Hey, Jimmy, it's now your turn to move. It's just. It was just not great offense.
And then when you're down 6, so Michigan had that late 8-0 run to get up 6, and Nebraska had a stretch where they'd missed 11 of 13. When they were down 6, it was 45-39. You're like, wow, 6 seems way insurmountable.
Yeah.
But again, at the end of the game, Nebraska had, for some ungodly reason, they had 2 opportunities, either to win the game or to tie the game.
I thought that on TV, I don't know, in person, maybe that butane gel shot did not look close. On TV, it looked so close.
God.
On TV, it looked like it was in.
You brought up a good point about who was directly behind him. When he caught the ball, I wonder if it would have been a different result if he immediately would have gone up. Because
Good point.
He did pause to see who was behind him.
I think that the play, and I think maybe they thought they had more time, but it was Berke to grab it and then toss it to Bryce, and then Bryce take that shot, and that's a shot that Bryce actually has made twice, once against Iowa, once against Maryland.
And so Michigan kind of half defended that well, the
Yeah.
Bryce Drew play. All right, we start on the phones this morning with Nebraska Mike. Hello.
Hypothetical question.
Sure.
What happens if you take Terran Petaway and put him on this team? And what happens if you take Bryce Williams and put him on 2014?
I don't deal in hypotheticals, Mike, so I'll let Matt tackle that one.
Answer me.
Huh?
What happens if you switch the captain out for this year, and then you put Bryce Williams on 2014's team. What happens?
I don't know, Mike.
They still go to the NCAA
Yeah,
tournament.
they still maybe they beat Baylor. I don't know. I maybe they win that tournament game with Bryce Williams. I have no clue.
Why is Doc Sadler and Tim Miles better at finding a point guard than Fred Hoiberg? And why is Brooke Gell on this team?
Well, I'll take.
Wait 2 weeks for you to come home, for you to come back and do that.
Well, okay. So let's talk about the Turkish man who's getting paid a lot of money to play basketball at Nebraska.
We're wasting money if he's getting paid.
Oh, he's getting paid. He's getting paid.
Why?
Why? Well, because they were in the portal and they needed him and his size and what he could do and what they thought he could do. So that's what happens, Mike. You pay players
you
to
better get
come
your
here.
chemistry right next year because this is ugly.
The roster in terms of everything fitting together with skill set is very awkward. But their margin of error is so small. They've got to play so hard on one end of the floor because they don't have enough two-way guys that can play well on defense, and that's what they're known for. And then, boy, when we put the ball in their hand, they're going to be fine. Okay? That's on Fred, the way they constructed this roster. But Berke, there was some disagreement on how much they were going to pay him, but that's beside the point. But when he's on the floor, last night, you could see what a difference he makes on defense, but he turned into hero ball last night. And for a guy that just got back, why are we taking 10 shots? And the shots are not like, they're like in rhythm and they're out of a set. They are just wild, pull it out of your ass shots.
There was, how many threes could he take? 4 or 5? I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I get your point, Mike. I think that Berke, like when you watch him on the offensive end only, you start questioning why he's getting the minutes. He definitely did play a role, not only just from a productivity standpoint, but he made some like impact momentum type plays in the defensive end that got the crowd into it, which has its value. But I don't know. The whole team, you could go down the entire roster and say it's a tale of two different skill sets.
They all have an awareness problem.
Yeah,
like situational awareness, and then sometimes I think guys just shoot to shoot.
Here's the thing. I feel so bad for Bryce and Jawan. They know what this is. They know what it's like to get there. And they can't carry this team.
Well, one guy wearing number 3 last night in the Cape tried. I mean, they still have a path to the NCAA tournament. They are going to benefit from some nice wins that they didn't have in the early part of the year, bad losses. But all that is left is hurt from here on out.
Andrew, there's no reason to laugh at us. We did it to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe the way that, because this is a team that lost 6 in a row, and then they won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Now they lost 3 of 4. That if you didn't already know what they need to fix next year, when they're going to have a lot of scholarships to fill,
they are.
then you shouldn't be in that role because they're going to have to find the next Bryce, which will not be easy.
No.
They're going to have to find a point guard, and somehow, some way, Creighton can do it. Other schools can do it in the Big Ten. Nebraska needs to find an athletic 5 that is a rim runner and that is a difference maker at the rim, not just a guy that's tall.
Yeah, no, we haven't had it. Ed Morrow was close, but Ed Morrow always got hurt. He was only 6'7", and no.
Yeah, they haven't had. It's been a while since Nebraska had a difference making big man. All right, Mike. Thank you. Here is Andrew. Good morning.
Drew.
Boys, how are we doing?
Not great.
Well, the sun will come up, and it is coming up. So it's all good.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I get to smoke a cigar today,
Who?
Andrew. That's nice.
That is nice. The cigar is always good.
Always great.
Who is one thing with Hoiberg? I think he's offensively challenged on finding an identity. It seems like year after year, his offense really doesn't have identity or what they're good at, or we're going to be a 3-point shooting team.
Yeah.
Who's in charge of their offense? And why does Hoiberg really not kind of stick with a plan offensively
I
and get
think
players to it?
Andrew, I think this year, and you kind of saw it last year, it's spread, right? He wants as many shooters out there to spread the floor. He likes to do some 5 out, some 4 out, some 1 in type stuff. And this year, it just really comes down to roster construction. They only have one guy who's a true 3-point shooter in Connor Essegian. And he kind of talked about it in the post game with Vlad Golden. He spent a lot of time in the paint yesterday. Well, if Nebraska or Fred Hoiberg had his way, he would have another 3-point shooter. He'd have a guy like Rink Mass being able to play, who can stretch the floor out, who can bring Golden outside of the paint and able to attack the paint more. And so I think Fred Hoiberg's offense, and it's always been Iowa State to Chicago to, last year at Nebraska, has been, we're going to spread the floor. We're going to have 3-point shooters, and we're going to be able to make our shots not only on the outside, but open ourselves opportunities up on the inside. And they just did not construct the roster this year where he can run that type of offense. That's really what it just comes down to.
Has he ever really constructed a
Last year
was
with Casey and Wilcher and Bryce, and Rink was able to shoot the 3 as well. They had, and then you add in the bruiser of Josiah Alec, who was able to kind of be that glue on the defensive end, but also grab a lot of really important rebounds in the offensive end. Like that was the roster they wanted. That's kind of the construction of offense that Fred thinks is ideal for how he coaches his teams.
And he's, like you said earlier in the show, he's always proud of his team. Frankly, I wouldn't be proud of that game.
Yeah,
I would light the fires under their asses. I think you have to be pretty frank and pretty hard on these guys to get something out of them.
Yeah, well,
because last night it looked like they were looking for number 3 to do everything.
They were in it.
They were. Andrew, thanks for the phone call. You're right. Last year was like Fred's vision of an offense. They're just not constructed very well. They don't have as many shooters on the floor. At times you have 1.5 shooters. Sometimes you have 2. Rink Mast would be a guy like last night. Rink Mast would be really good in that game.
Really good in that game.
Because as a stretch 5, top of the key, but also a guy that could bang down low. Just, you did it to yourselves this year, and you have to fight through it. That's why I keep saying that Fred's just trying to drag this team to Selection Sunday where they hear their name called. And then whoever, whatever happens. But it would be almost amazing if they did drag this team into the NCAA tournament. When you look at how deficient they are in some key areas that you got to win in the Big Ten.
Point guard play, awareness, shot selection. The only thing that this team has consistently done well all season is play defense,
Mm-hmm. The situational awareness this year is something I've been harping on for a long time, but Fred's got a lot of scholarships to fill in the offseason.
Yeah.
Is there money there to help him fill those scholarships? And that's the problem.
He'll get a big boost, though, getting Rink back, because I think that Rink and his skill set is a catalyst to any sort of Fred Hoiberg offense.
Unfortunately, though, they're not going to let 3 play anymore.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one.
All right, Sam McEwen will join us in the next hour. Again, lots of reaction to what happened between Nebraska and Michigan last night. How would we feel if that was a football game a couple years ago and it was 49-46?
Oh, we'd be ecstatic. We'd be disappointed.
Would that
obviously.
be a scoregami, you think, in Nebraska football history if it was 49-46?
Nebraska, 49-46. 9-6 is a weird square pool. So, yeah, probably.
God, we'd be like, Satterfield is a god. Harburg, how'd they get Harburg to lead Nebraska offensively to 46 points? And then we'd be like, Tony White's got to go.
It'd be we're going undefeated the rest of the year. We're not losing one more game.
All right, hour 2 coming up next. All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2, Gary and Matt, Sam McEwen, bottom of the hour. Big day in college football, the Big Ten and the SEC make a little bit of noise. Do you think with, we're about to find out the 4 autos, if they go to 14 to 16. Now, remember, in 25, everybody's got a vote. 26, the superpowers can do whatever they want.
Power chair.
Do you think that Tony Petitti wants to do this? Or do you think that Greg Sankey has drug him in
good question.
to being the Wonder Powers?
Um,
Because there is a little bit of a risk here. And Petitti doesn't have the same, just swag as Sankey and want to take over the world, or at least he doesn't come across as that. He may be quietly an assassin that's got the Big Ten with him, but it just is, it's kind of an odd pairing. You remember that weird press conference last summer?
Yeah.
Where Sankey was, they were at they were in the hallway and Sankey was the guy and Petitti
Greg was talking a lot.
Petitti was just kind of sitting there.
So let's go back to this, right? Because I think there are a lot of people in the SEC who are SEC people who would say, well, the Big Ten, they grabbed Rutgers. The Big Ten, they grabbed Maryland. The Big Ten, they grabbed Nebraska. I don't know if that was a power grab.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was just the Big Ten kind of taking advantage of universities that they would want in their conference and, educationally as well, maybe with the East Coast schools. They were just, hey, this is something that happens. Conference movement occurs. We'll take Maryland, Rutgers from the ACC. We'll take, Nebraska from the Big 12. But when the SEC took Oklahoma and Texas from the Big 12, okay, that wasn't a natural college football occurrence. That was a power grab. That was a, hey, we're marking our territory. That was a, you're playing Risk with the family world domination type move. And the Big Ten grabbed USC and UCLA in response to that. Mm-hmm. They didn't go out. They weren't poking around trying to get, at least what we know and what we've read. They weren't going, hey, USC, UCLA, we want you to come here. The Big Ten was pretty content with what the conferences were and where they stood in that power grid. But they did what they needed to do because, they didn't want the SEC to become the superpower that was absolute best conference. So then they grabbed USC, UCLA. Then it turned into Oregon and Washington. We're like, hey, we don't want to be the sole proprietors of the Pac-12 anymore. And the Big Ten was almost like, all right, well, obviously we'll take you too, because obviously if you want to come, you're Washington and Oregon. Yeah. This is clear as day. So I think that Petitti is definitely just kind of playing along, and he's doing what he needs to do in order to secure the future of his conference, in order to secure the fact that, hey, if it were up to the SEC, and I think Petitti knows it, it wouldn't be the Power 2. It would be the Power 1. It would be all about the SEC. The SEC would have world domination. Mm-hmm. But, Petitti and the commissioners before him and the people who made the decisions before him made the decisions to make sure that, hey, we still are in power. So I think, who has always been the first one to move the chess piece and all of this stuff? It's been the SEC, and it's been Greg Sankey.
All right, some emails off of last night, the Nebraska-Michigan game. If you missed it, probably don't want to rewatch it.
Lucky you.
49-46, Michigan beat Nebraska. One of those games, there weren't many games going on last night, Texas Tech and Houston.
I should have gone to that one.
Hey.
But then when you said all those free throws, I was like, yeah.
Hey, Calvin Sampson, man. Man can coach.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude.
Man can coach. Hey, how about should we give some credit to the AAC? So Houston jumps into the Big 12.
Fit
SMU jumps into the ACC, football that is.
Yeah.
And didn't UConn won a national championship representing the AAC, didn't they?
I believe so.
Was
Shabazz Napier?
Oh, back then. Yes.
That's wild.
I thought
that's wild that the AAC has a national championship in basketball thanks to UConn.
Yeah.
Well, the Big East too, who was getting 3 bids the last 2 years and has basically been written as you're one of the worst P5, well P6 then, now P5 now conferences. They won the last 2 NCAA championships, and they won it in dominating fashion. I mean, UConn's got a knack for representing their conference better than most teams.
If Houston was the 3rd team on the floor last night at PBA, how many points would Michigan and Nebraska have scored?
7.
Because their defense is suffocating.
Between 7 and 10.
I don't know.
Michigan would have had 10.
What you found out yesterday, if you were watching both
Rice
of
would have
those
scored
games,
7.
that basketball comes in all shapes and different
Yeah,
sizes.
there we go.
That's what you found out.
Yeah.
That basketball can be played and enjoyed in very different ways.
I have been to a 64-59 NBA game, so I should stop complaining.
Oof.
I really want to meet somebody that went to that 6-4 Iowa Penn State game.
I really want to meet
watched it
someone
in college. There's that.
I want to meet someone who went to that 1951 Northwestern 2 Michigan 0 game, because every time those teams play, they show that old, paper that has the score on the front page. So it's a great little Big Ten.
I think the airliner in Iowa City on every June 4th, they have drink specials.
They should.
To celebrate the 6-4 game. Zach writes into the Equitable Bank inbox where they take banking personally. Say hello to Doug this morning. He'll have his Nebraska red on, I'm sure.
Jur's out.
Okay, so as you can tell, the tone of the emails in the inbox today are, as you'd expect,
spirited.
This is from Zach, who I actually responded in game last night to one of Zach's emails. It was first half Raleigh Worcester. Okay, Worcester Morgan worthless. Nebraska media can miss me with all this moral victory BS that they always bring with this garbage program. Anything this program does is meaningless until they win an NCAA tournament game. This comes from Mike. Now, this is, I say they still have a path. That doesn't mean they're going to be in the dance, but they still have a path.
Oh,
but all that is left is hurt. Like you can't win a game and go, ooh, and the bracketology guys go, ooh. Like there's no chance in the last 3 games like to build momentum where people go, yeah, that's a quad 1 star victory.
Sure.
Mike says, why is everyone so sure the Huskers make the big dance?
No, we're not sure. We are not sure.
Now, are we, if they go 3-0, and granted they'd be 2 games below 500 in the league, is that enough to at least have them in Dayton? Or would they
be 2 games, or would they be 500?
Or are they not? Would they be 9-11?
I think they're. No, I think they're.
Oh, they'd be 10-10. That's right.
They'd be 10-10.
So I, in my head, I'm thinking if they go 2-1. So if Nebraska finds a way to do what they were doing just a little bit ago and win 4 in a row, that would a berth in the NCAA tournament. So you'd win your last 3, including a road game, and then win a game in.
And then we got to start looking at seedings, right? So they're 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they're the 10 seed now.
So they were supposed to be. It was supposed to be Nebraska, Oregon in the 8-9 game. They dropped down to the 10.
10. And so if they were to go 10-10, they would probably. I'm just guessing here, looking at the peak is the 8. Maybe they get to the 7 if Oregon loses their last 3. They're not going to they categorically cannot get higher than a 7.
Okay, so 1 seed's out.
Purdue's at 6 and they have 11 wins. So the highest they can get is a 7 seed. I mean, the lowest they can. I mean, in technicality, they technically could drop out of the. I don't think the math is mathing. But yeah, they're at a 10 seed right now.
Another email about Michigan and Dusty May, who they've won 13 conference games. They go from Juwan Howard to Dusty May.
Upgrade.
How about the students last night? USA. When Golden was shooting free throws.
They do like America, Nebraska.
Student section showed up last night.
They look great. Were they tasked with being in black, or were they given shirts?
So just like a lot of things at Nebraska, when it comes to these kind of moments, it wasn't sponsored by the university. It
was organic.
So it was organic, and it was word of mouth among students. So
good on them.
Unless the university gets behind it, we're not going to have a full blackout at PBA, or like a full stripe.
Are they doing a
Memorial
stripe
Day.
out for Minnesota?
Yes. But the university's gotten behind that.
Yes.
I like the blackout. The students, people followed their assignment last night. It was deserved better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Deserved better.
Well, you were there. The atmosphere outside the arena had to be festive on a gorgeous day.
Dude.
Man, I was envious.
Dude, I was still living in Lincoln when they were discussing PBA, and it made so much sense. That is such, and then now there's some discussion about Lincoln and Omaha button heads over the NCAA tournament in bids for men's basketball and who might get it. But the city of Lincoln and everybody that was involved, that's one of the smartest things they ever did is build that arena. And then the rail yard. I always look at, and I love PBA. I love that you can be in the rail yard, walk right into the arena, walk out of the arena, and the rail yard is right there. And nights like last night, the weather was really, really nice. Just think if here in Omaha, and I like the Chai as well. I mean, I think we got a banger of an NBA arena in this town. But just think if it was closer to the old market, if it opened into the old market. I know they're trying with the Capital District, but if you walk out of the Chai, you can't see the Capital District, and it's behind a Marriott, and it's not directly in front of you. Where at PBA, you walk out the front doors, and the rail yard is right there. Well, think if, and I know there was some politics involved in where the Chai is located, but just think if you went up a couple of blocks and it opened up into the old market. That's what you would have.
They would print
That's
money.
what you would have here. But people want Nebraska basketball to win so bad. They have invested so much into it that the return on investment just, it gives you kidney stones.
That's a great shout because kidney stones are awful. That's a lot of pain.
Interesting.
But once you get rid of them, you're like, ugh. But Mike says Michigan turned it around in 1 year with the right coach.
Well, with the right coach and with the right investments into roster construction. Roddy Gale Jr. came from Ohio State. Vlad Golden came from FAU. Danny Wolf came from Yale. They're your three best players on that team. They all were playing for different teams last season.
Do you know that Creighton was in the mix? It was Creighton and Michigan for Roddy Gale.
Really?
Yeah. I think, though, so there's going to be a discussion in the offseason around Nebraska basketball about spending the right money. There's a couple of guys that I think, like in this last offseason, like Mahaney, and who is such a bad fit at UConn, would have been a better fit at Creighton, but money got involved, and Creighton was like, we ain't going that high. Like, you have to give credit to Creighton in their NIL, and the guys at the Bird Club is they do spend wise money. Like they don't miss on a lot of guys when it comes to spending money. Like they spend the right money, and I think that's a lesson to be learned as we get into the new times that you have revenue sharing, and so the athletic department is doling out cash. You know, you spend the right money.
Well, look at Kansas. They spent money and they hate each other.
I mean, AJ Store, that's not good money they spend.
No. And I think, too, like
Florida State football,
there definitely has to be I think sometimes we get caught up in stats or experience and upside and not enough of, well, how did they fit in this team?
Yeah.
You know, what's the fit here? Why were they successful here? Or maybe why weren't they successful here? And how could they become more successful? With Connor Essegian, I think that Connor Essegian is going to have a great year next year if they can find another shooter.
I'm with you.
If they can get another shooter, complimentary coming off of the bench, or maybe even that the next shooter they get is a little bit more of a defensive guy, but still can shoot the three, and then you bring Connor off the bench. I think Connor has the opportunity to have a great year.
You are on a right path because he's a jump shooter.
Yes.
He needs a complimentary guard.
Absolutely. Yep. He needs someone else who can give him a little bit more space, but who can also who can create shots for him, right? I think too often times we're seeing Connor take shots where he's got to shoot it. Not like, and what I mean by that is he's got to be moving to the right and he's got to be moving to the left. Where how many times have you really seen Connor Essegian take the ball, even maybe give it a dribble, line it up and hit a shot? It doesn't happen all that often. So if they can add another, like that's what, when they go into the lab and they have a lot of these scholarships and hopefully they'll have some money to play with. The number one thing I think for them is we got to get a guard. We got to get a true point guard who can be the floor general of the team. But man, if they could shoot too, if this could be a guard that's a little bit like Steven Ashworth, who, man, he's a good 3-point shooter, but he can conduct this offense, you can unlock some other guys on this team.
Joey writes in, defensive games are boring to most nowadays because we are used to teams taking 53s a game.
I like a defensive game that ends in like 63-61 or like even 58-55.
So you liked like the UCLA game earlier this year?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a little fun because
that's okay.
I do enjoy the holding your breath if they're going to make the shot or not.
Used to play that game.
Like, I do enjoy this isn't probably going to
Then
go
you would
in.
have passed out last night.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, I do enjoy that. This probably won't go in, but man, if it does, this place is going to go crazy. Like, I enjoy those games. Hey, I grew up watching Northwestern basketball. I mean, that's what I'm accustomed to.
Both teams forced the offenses to play that bad. Nebraska did miss a lot of open opportunities, though, but still, good defense can't be ignored. And I disagree. Both teams' shot selection didn't make sense at times. I think he's meant to say I agree.
Yeah. There was that one Aaron Eulis shot that I literally have not been able to get out of my brain. Do you know the one that I'm talking about? Where he was driving baseline in the first half, and he could have easily had like a left-hand floater, but then decided to try and bank it off of the glass. And it didn't even hit the square part of the board. It hit the top part of the board. That was a bad shot.
Again, do you think guys just shoot because they want to shoot?
I would love to go to
to
go to a practice and see if these guys like drain a lot of these shots they take during the game. So I'm not trying to be. This is not tongue in cheek, and this is not being mean or anything like that. Like I seriously would like to go to a practice and see if like Bear K is like a flamethrower and knocking these down.
Why do I think he is?
Yeah.
Like, I bet you walked into the gym and watched a shoot around, and you're like, okay, 9 is a guy that's going to have a big night.
Exactly.
70.
But then the game starts, and just the awareness of when to take a shot, how to take a shot, and not just shoot because you need to shoot. You shoot in the flow of the offense and things that are designed for you.
But that's the problem. Like, that's like, how often is it within the flow of the offense?
That's true.
And you can even make the argument, how often does the offense even really flow? It's not a fluid deal. It isn't. And I don't think that's, once again, like, I don't think that's like a knock on Fred's coaching, because we've seen what a flowy offense with Fred Hoiberg looks like. I think it's more so knock on the roster construction.
We come back. I'm going to pose a question to you. It's something you just brought up.
Okay.
We got to hit a break here. We got Sam McEwen coming up before the hour's over. Brian Christopherson a little bit later. That's all to come on Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. Hey, last night, good night at AEF Academy. The tryouts are going on. 7th and 8th grade boys, great turnout. And the rosters are coming together for spring and summer at AEF Academy, one of the fastest growing youth basketball programs in the Omaha area. Attitude, effort, focus. Now, 2nd through 6th grade boys tryouts are coming up tonight and tomorrow. There is no fee to try out. They ask that you register online at aefacademy.com. Professionally structured evaluation process. They're going to give you objective insight and put you on the right team. You're not going to be on a team where you shouldn't be. If you need to play up, you're going to play up, but it's going to fit your skill set. Again, there's no charge to try out. 2nd through 6th coming up tonight and tomorrow at AF Academy, but they ask that you register. AF Academy, located 99th and Portal Road in Papillion, 3 great hardwood courts, gives you a lot of opportunity to get shots up. They have clinics. They have, you never know what former NBA guys or current college guys might be working out there. It's a great place to get involved today. Fastest growing youth basketball program in the Omaha area. Attitude, effort, focus. They're going to help you on and off the floor to develop great athletes and even better humans. 2nd through 6th grade boys, Tuesday, tonight, Wednesday, tryouts. No fee. Go online to register, though, at aefacademy.com. You can also see online more information on AEF Academy. I'm a big fan of this video.
Wasn't there an Undertaker promo with this one? Yeah, that's awesome.
She'll listen to this coming home last night.
Yeah. I guess it wasn't like just catatonic.
I don't know that word.
I was like, well, it's Nebraska basketball. Which you know what? We need to change the narrative around here of, guys play hard, man. They're scrappy. I need some skill. Eric Olson from the AP, Oli, tweeted this out. According to Sports Radar, which I
love where this is going.
I went to the website. It is a leading global sports technology company.
Okay.
Bryce Williams is the only player from a major conference this season to score all or all but one of the team's field goals in a half. He had 18 of the 21 points in the first half for Nebraska last night against Michigan.
It was 18 Bryce points, 1 Jawan free throw, and a Connor Sejan bucket, right?
Yeah.
And then wasn't that a Sejan bucket assisted by Bryce?
I don't think Bryce had an assist last night.
Okay.
Which is crazy for a guy that scores 26 and does not have an assist
and holds the ball as much as he does. Rightfully so, by the way. I'm not saying that Bryce shouldn't have the ball as much as he does.
Let me double check.
I have it right here. No, he didn't have an assist. That's crazy.
Which somebody go, oh my God, that guy's selfish. No,
it's
because when he passed the ball, nobody could make a shot off of Bryce Williams' pass. Okay, so here's the question. Something you brought up there at the end of the last segment.
Yes.
This season for Nebraska basketball, I still say there's a path, but all that is left is hurt. So if you drop a game, don't play until Saturday against Minnesota, the last time Minnesota won in Lincoln, Tubby Smith was the coach. They've never won in Lincoln.
Yeah.
Devaney Center or at the old PBA.
I think the last 2 times Minnesota has played in Nebraska, I was announcing the game on 90.3 KRNU.
What are you doing on Saturday?
Yeah.
1 o'clock?
I will be in Chicago.
Oh.
You could do it remote.
Then you do know if Minnesota wins.
It's my fault.
Okay. Yeah.
You blaming it on me? All right.
Did this season it's unfolded for Nebraska, and we look at the skill set, we look at the roster, we look at the head coach who's now in his 6th year trying to drag this team to the NCAA tournament. In 24-25, has Fred Hoiberg GM failed Fred Hoiberg coach, or has Fred Hoiberg coach failed Fred Hoiberg GM?
Fred Hoiberg GM has massively failed Fred Hoiberg coach. Okay. I think that, and which is why it always comes back to where I don't think there's a coaching problem. There's a roster construction problem, which is exactly that. He did not give himself enough shooters. He did not give himself there probably is. Bryce is a 2-way player. Bryce is a good defensive player. And then outside of Bryce, Jawan would be the next guy that you would say is your 2-way player. But Jawan has nights like he did yesterday where he shoots 2 of 13 from the field. So you just
pulled an Angel Reese last night.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's done that a couple of times this year.
Missed a shot, got his own rebound, put it right back up.
Missed it. And
Wilson Palone used to do that.
So he didn't give himself enough spacing. He did not get the right point guard. He did not get a consistent point guard. And I think that the thought was, okay, if Raleigh doesn't work out, then we have Aaron Eulis still, who didn't play last year, but he's practiced enough and he's been in our system enough where he knows what he's doing. Both those haven't worked out. Sam Hoiberg, his son, has played a really good season overall, but I think that it, kind of just impromptu. He was like, all right, Sam, you got to be the point guard because the other 2 guys aren't doing it. So, and then at the same time, you got Braxton Mia, who can't play offense and who is kind of just a body on defense. And then you have Andrew Morgan, who is a pretty good offensive player, but definitely does have his, deficiencies on defense. It just doesn't, this roster doesn't gel, but luckily for him, he recruited Bryce Williams, who has become one hell of a player this year and who has led them to a lot of these victories. And so that's kind of been the saving grace as Fred Hoiberg as the GM. But yeah, it's just not a roster that bodes well for his coaching style.
Doug writes in to his own inbox from Equitable Bank. At what point does Nebraska basketball fan hold Fred accountable for his flawed roster construction model? I think that's we are all doing that.
Yes.
And it's not just off of last night. You can't just reset the roster every year with transfers. You have to have some long-term development. That's the problem I've long had about Fred is he's not into high school development. Even though I look at Janowski, that guy's just, you see him like shooting warm-ups.
Yeah.
I mean, the other day, was the last home game? He was out on the floor shooting after people had left. He's somebody who kind of has to pan out. I don't know about Frager.
They don't have any recruits other than...
Well, I think Rhymes will be a good player, but Nebraska needs like freshmen to actually play. We can't have portal guys or... That's the thing, but that's the Fred model. And
would you like to have Eli Rice on this team?
No.
Okay.
Forget about this year. What will the team look like next year? They have a lot of scholarships available because remember, you're going to jump from 13 to 15, and Nebraska's all in. So you're going to have 7 to 8 scholarships to fill. You got Rink Mast sitting at the end of the bench, so he at least is coming back, and he will be fully healthy,
yes,
which he never was last year. So you at least have that going for you. But, man, that's 7 to 8 bodies in revenue sharing that you have to find a way to construct that roster. Couple more. Are they going to build the team around a season? No.
No.
Barricade? No. Morgan? No. Mayett? No.
No.
Wooster? No.
No.
Bryce Williams? Here's some positivity in Doug's email. Bryce Williams, clear-cut first-team All-Big Ten player. We can agree on that. He's going to be tough to replace.
He's going to be so tough to replace. I mean, that's probably the hardest archetype to replace, right? A guy that you can just put the ball in their hands with 10 seconds left in the shot clock and know that something good is going to happen. I mean, that's a rare trait to have in basketball.
The future is not looking good. All doom and gloom. Good thing spring football will be here shortly. Because that's just me inserting this. Because the coach is such a good guy, nobody hates him. He gets a pass. I think what has happened here is this season has unfolded. And again, I've said this for the longest time. The Nebraska basketball fan is the most tortured fan in any sport down there. But they are all in it. They want it so bad. I mean, last night the place was rocking. It's a great atmosphere. The return on investment is a little, but do people think that Nebraska athletics is all in on men's basketball?
Yeah, I think that's going to have to be something that this year they're going to have the opportunity to prove with the amount of scholarships they have open and the amount of holes they need to have filled, right? If they are invested in this program, they will go out and they will fill those holes, not only all the way up to 8, but they won't leave any discount, or anything up for interpretation.
So the money people who can dabble and sprinkle some on football, volleyball, basketball, are they encouraged to drop more coin to help Nebraska basketball turn a frustrating year around to get back to 2 years ago?
Yes.
That's the question you ask those people, because the investment from the NIL is not there for Nebraska basketball.
So if I were Fred and I was trying to pitch to them, hey, this is why you should invest. Look at the building last night. The place was packed. That place was loud. That place was passionate. That place was willing that team to a win. And Fred can say, look around. Look at what we got here. And this is a team that probably is going to end up playing in Dayton. This isn't even what you would consider a great team. Imagine if you invested and you helped us create a roster that could be a great team, and that we didn't just have an 8, 9, 10 seed playing at Pinnacle Bank Arena every game. We had a 4, 5, 6 seed playing here. Imagine what could this become, what this program can become, because this isn't rare. Like this isn't common. Like how many people were at PBA? Like go and look at Hawkeye Carver. Go look at Bryce Jordan. Go look at Maryland, who's got one hell of a team this year. A team that I think Maryland could make a run to the Elite Eight Final Four. And they don't even have that. They're not even selling out their building and getting as rowdy as Pinnacle Bank Arena is. So I think that Fred has one hell of a pitch because of the passion and interest that people have on his team.
Wonder if Troy Dannon says anything this week about men's basketball.
You've been asking that for a couple of weeks now, too. And he's been He's been out and about, and he's been talking, and he hasn't
We
really
don't.
mentioned.
We don't even talk to men's basketball from the AD chair.
I want to point at something that Doug emailed there. He talked about future. And I think, and this isn't just a basketball thing, I think this is just a college sports thing. With the NIL and with the transfer portal, I think we need to rethink the definition of future and how we use the word future. And what I mean by that is, the best example of that is Michigan last year, right? Had Juwan Howard. They were the worst team in the Big Ten. They hire a coach. He comes in. He brings in all these transfers. He does a really good job constructing his roster. They invest the money that they need to invest. And all of a sudden, we're talking about a team that is going to go a lock in the NCAA tournament and who can make a run. You go and look at Indiana. There's another team where just in 1 year, they bring in a coach. They're able to bring in these transfers, impact players, and all of a sudden, they're in the college football playoff. And other teams have done that across the country where, yes, like back before NIL and before the transfer portal, you had to see things coming. You had to see the freshmen developing. You had to see the writing on the wall. Hey, if these steps which have been taken before, if these happen, then we're going to have a good future. Now in this era, I think yes, there is such thing as future. There is such thing as developing high school talent. And I still think that if Nebraska is going to be a top program one day, they need to develop through high school and young talent. But just in terms of year in and year out producing a winner, the transfer portal has absolutely changed that. So I don't think you can look at future from a 3-4 year perspective. I think you need to take it year in and year out and position yourself in the right places in order to get the right players to construct the roster that makes the most sense for you. So we are now in an era of, man, you can turn this thing around quick.
Sam McEwen. Quick turnaround to get to Sam.
Quick.
From the World Herald. Joins us next on 1620 The Zone.
Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? Well, you can with Underdog, and I almost did last night. Well, maybe not 1,000 times, but you get the idea. It was close till a 49-46 game kind of ruined that. But that's neither here nor there. To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower, what other stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more. And they've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. I even gambled on hockey last night. That's because you can create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across the other sports. And hockey was good to me. Okay. All right. This week on Underdog, I'm still looking at basketball. I'm looking at college basketball, looking at pro basketball. And after last night, maybe I should look at the NHL. We'll see. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. As long as I don't die here. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code ZONE. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 18 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
All right, a lot of stuff going on. This is a good time to catch up with a good friend, Sam McCune of the World Herald. Good morning, Sam.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
We got a lot to get to. I'm going to start here. After last night, Nebraska basketball still in the mix to go to the NCAA tournament for back-to-back years, but
Right.
the frustrating part of that. But I want to ask you a big picture thing, and this is keyed off an email from Shane, because there's a lot of the discussion. It isn't just this morning after a loss like last night. Is the investment financially in Nebraska basketball from the power chair to their NIL. Shane wonders, is Nebraska more worried about getting football right before they start spending money on basketball?
No, I don't think that they are. Now, let's be clear. The NIL thing is a little bit of a separate conversation.
It is. It is.
Like, it's not, you can't tell people who have committed their time and effort to Nebraska athletics financially, you must give to this, and this. That's their money. Yeah. They can deploy it as they wish, and you can't tell people what to do there. Now, on the other side of things, I think Nebraska's financial commitment to its head coach and its assistant coaches in terms of salary is more competitive than people might think. I mean, they pay more. They pay more, for example, or equal to Wisconsin. Wisconsin basketball is pretty good, I would say. They have a better training facility up until this previous summer. They had a better training and practice setup than the football program does, and they have a better venue in which to play their sport than football does. That is a tougher home court, and that is a bigger home court advantage than football is home field advantage. And I don't think Nebraska's basketball program is what it used to be when it was at the Devaney Center and Doc was the coach, and they were sometimes practicing in Mabel Lee Hall. That's not the story anymore about this program. Now, I'm not going to tell you that they're spending the way Michigan State is, because I've done those numbers, and they're not. They're also not making the same amount of money that Michigan State is. Illinois, they're not. But relative to many of the programs in the Big Ten, nobody's going to tell me that Iowa has a better setup than Nebraska. They don't. I mean, Iowa's Carver Hawkeye Arena, if you're one of the best seats in that arena, you have to climb Mount Everest to go back up and get a hot dog or some ice cream. And they have good ice cream there. And
you're right as well. They do.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, that was just that. And anybody who's ever been there, I'm not saying it's not a cool arena, but it's all underground, and it looks like you're entering a science lab from the top of it. And the parking lots are all squished, and the fans here have it really good. So no, I'm not saying that Nebraska couldn't invest more in basketball. And on the NIL front, that's a different conversation, and we will see what happens with revenue sharing. We will. But I think I would argue that Nebraska football probably hasn't been invested in enough in some areas, whereas the basketball program has been invested in a little bit more.
So let me stop you there, because you wrote about it, because you did the comparison of salaries. Why has Nebraska football, until recently when they got the facility, not invested in the number one sport that drives the ship for the athletic department? That's crazy to say out loud, Sam.
Yeah.
Why do you not want Nebraska football to have every chance to be successful, because you need it to be successful?
I think that a byproduct of the financial modesty that Nebraska had for 50 years, so I think some of that is a byproduct of Coach Osborne not bilking Nebraska for what he was probably worth, because he's a good guy. He could have been worth millions more in salary for the level of success he was having. And so I think that wasn't his big desire. I think that probably trickled down to the following coaching staff. And then, the minute that you commit to Callahan, you begin, they remember they signed the contract extension about 3 weeks before the season, or maybe they did it right before the USC game. And then from there, you just get into a cycle of paying more money for coaches not to coach and assistant coaches not to coach than paying coaches to coach. And so there was Callahan, and there was Bo, and then there was 3 years of Riley, and nobody liked him, so he had to go. And then they get Scott, and, Scott's staff didn't require a lot of money, I don't think. I think Scott didn't necessarily want to bilk Nebraska. Nor did he want to surround himself, in my opinion, and this is true at UCF too, he didn't want to surround himself with guys that had done a whole bunch more coaching. And so, his staff, I don't think, really commanded that. Now, Matt Rule, when he got here, you could argue some of that about his staff too, but that's changed. So Dana Holgorsen is somebody you have to pay a lot of money to. Obviously, Houston's still paying Holgorsen, so he's getting 1.2. John Butler's been around a long time, and he's getting $1 million. And obviously, Satterfield's still getting paid. But the guys they have now, you got to pay money. Like, they're not just going to hang around here for $400,000. Barthel and Voracek are up to $450. Eckler was not going to be free. So, all these things, all of these, now they have to pay the staff because the staff's experience is commensurate with higher pay. But Rule's also expanded the sports staff spending because I think he feels like he wants to put a lot of people around these athletes. And in doing that, you have to spend the money to do it. And Nebraska's always just been kind of modest in that area.
Sam, we had people email in and talk about, Nebraska basketball, what's their future, right? And the fact that they haven't really invested a ton in high school sports. And this isn't just a Nebraska basketball question. This will be just a college sports question in general. With the portal and with NIL, how much of the word future really means as much as it used to anymore?
Well, there's a program trajectory either way. Duke's going to do what Duke does. And it has, I'm sure, a vision for how it wants to comport itself. Although this is an important year for Duke because they need to win. They need to get to the Final Four. Otherwise, the whole doing the high school thing is obviously not the way to go.
Sure.
As it relates to Nebraska, I think this is an enormously important year. So the end of this season is really important because I think we have to be honest as we look around the corner. They don't know where, the next Bryce Williams is going to come from because that's the way the portal works. You don't know who it's going to be until they go in the portal. And you might have an inkling one way or the other, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. And, they did an incredible job of scouting and evaluating Bryce Williams. And they got a very good player last year, and they got one of the Big Ten's 5, 6, 7 best players this year. And that's a tip of the cap to Nebraska's staff. But you don't know if you're going to get that player again. And so you got to get to the tournament this year because I don't know that next year is going to be a 20-win year. It's too hard to tell. We don't know much about Braden Frager and Nick Janowski. They've been redshirted. Or Justin Bolus, who's a walk-on, but, in the future of this thing, there's not really going to be any walk-ons in basketball. So, we don't really know what that core could be. They're redshirting them, and maybe those players are way better than we realize. But in lieu of that, if that isn't the case, then you have to replace Morgan and Mia and Worcester and Eulis and Williams and, you hope to get Rink Bass back and Connor Sejan back, but you can't make a basketball team out of 3 redshirt freshmen, Sejan and Mass. You got to go get 6 more players. And that's what so they knew coming into this season that Bryce Williams was going to give them a chance, and he has given them a chance. The question now is, can they close the deal on an NCAA tournament deal? Because then if they get a second tournament, they can go back out to some of these guys and say, here's where you will play. Here's where you will practice. Here's where you will eat, and you're going to go to the NCAA tournament. That's the key. They're able to sell March Madness to prospective transfers who are coming in because the rest of it is pretty sweet.
Hey, let's shift to the Nebraska-Tennessee discussion, but I want to take a different angle. I don't want to talk about who ordered the code red to get rid of the series, but I want to go a little bit deeper. So, Rule has said this a couple of times, that in a year where you hope to play 15 or 16 games, why would you elect to play a really tough game early?
Right.
And so there is the financial part. I get that. But there also is, everybody looked at the first year and they're like, man, this is how you schedule for the playoff. If they're not going to hit us with the strength of schedule non-con, why would we do that? So does that give you a sense that in the walls of the football facility, they believe, because I've looked at the 26 schedule, they believe that their window is starting to open to make a run at the playoff that could coincide in 26 and being a 16-team playoff?
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I do think that the finances drove the decision. I talked to Dan about this a couple of weeks ago. And so the extent of our conversation back then was laying out some of the financial dynamics that Nebraska is having to work through. Remember, they're going to have to put a $20 million to $25 million price tag on their budget every year for revenue sharing. And then also remember that they're in the process of grandfathering in season ticket holders who don't have to pay seat donations. And Dannon estimates that's $22 million a year that they're not getting that they're going to be gaining. But that is money that is in the process of being gained. And so there's a whole bunch there. And it is financially driven. And, this Dannon knows what it's like to walk through these realities because of where he's been in the past. So this is somebody who understands how to deal with being tight where you have to be or making decisions. To your point, I do think that if Nebraska is playing 9 Big Ten games and the 3 non-conference games, I don't think they're going to be out of step with anybody. I think they're going to be in step, and they're going to be able to point to those number of games, and they'll be able to say, we're one of these teams. If there's 4 bids from the Big Ten, then what you need to do is you need to win 10 and maybe 11 to get in that conversation. I think all 4 teams won 11 this year. Well, Ohio State's not. But you have to be able to do that. I have, if you beat Tennessee at home in 26, that does help you. And of course, if you win at Tennessee in 27, it helps you. But I can also understand the perspective of, financially we had to make this decision, and the reality is that committee is not so hung up on strength of schedule that they're going to look down, that they would elevate a loss to Tennessee over a win against Miami of Ohio. That's the thing that I think is the thought process, is like winning still counts, and Indiana proved that. Mm-hmm. And you can't do anything about it. If you had 4 automatic bids, Indiana's going to make it no matter what. And so what matters is winning. It isn't about, Indiana didn't play a very hard schedule, so Illinois is going to go in because they played Oregon. No, it's not happening. If we go to 4 auto bids, guys, the discussion is not Indiana versus Alabama. The discussion is Indiana versus Illinois.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And nobody said that Illinois should be in the playoff.
Yeah.
And the discussion becomes between Alabama and South Carolina, not Alabama and Indiana, not South Carolina and Indiana. If the Big Ten gets 4 automatic bids, Indiana and Illinois are your comparison pieces. And you tell me, did Illinois' win over Kansas help them? Not one bit. No, it didn't help them at all. Illinois losing to Oregon, and of course Illinois beat Kansas, but Illinois losing to Oregon is what cost Illinois going to the playoff in a 4 auto bid era.
Well,
so I think winning helps.
It was honestly too, Sam. Illinois lost to Minnesota. If Illinois doesn't lose to Minnesota, they're 10-2, and they're firmly in that discussion with the better wins. I think
it's a whole different discussion there.
Absolutely.
It's true. They went 9-3 versus 11-1.
Yeah. I
just don't think Illinois would have been anywhere near there, even if they were 10-2.
Yeah.
Even if you swap out Oregon with whatever, I think most people are like, Indiana's the better team because they have more wins, and they're 11-1 versus 10-2 in the Big Ten. Indiana wins. It just never came up because nobody was even thinking about comparing those 2 teams. But
we'll continue, because I'm going to continue on the same slant here. It was made clear that this decision was made because it was a money thing. but Nebraska still has to play Arizona in 28, Oklahoma in 29 and 30, and then in 32 they're going to finish off this, back and forth with Cincinnati. Do you think that if these seasons go well, 2026 and 2027, where they're not playing a Power 5 non-conference game, and instead they take the first 3 games as essentially a preseason heading into the all-important conference play of the Big Ten, they could say, you know what, we'll eat a chunk of change and we'll take the loss on the Arizona, Oklahoma, and Cincinnati games because we know for our program and making the playoff, that's more advantageous for us?
Yeah, I don't think they do that to Cincinnati. Okay. The thing with Cincinnati is convoluted anyway because of COVID and all that.
Sure.
I don't get the sense that they do that to Oklahoma. And Arizona, I don't think so. I mean, they didn't indicate that they want to do that. And by then, Nebraska is who it is. By 2028, which is like 3 full seasons from now, we'll know what Nebraska is and isn't. And we may also know something about the scheduling framework that has changed. You hear about, the Big Ten and the SEC. I personally don't want that. But I understand, that may happen. I don't think Nebraska pauses for 1 second to play Arizona. And that's a program in an inferior league. Oklahoma, I don't think they would cancel because that would be a bad look or whatever it is. But going forward, I don't know that they're going to schedule a bunch of these games. No, I think they're going to try to do what they need to do in order to maximize the playoff and maximize win.
Should Nebraska be cheering for 16 or 14 in the playoff when we kind of get a framework today?
16.
I think everybody across the Big Ten should be rooting for 16.
Absolutely.
Because you wouldn't be have a ceiling of 4. I mean, you could be looking at some years of 6 bids, which a school like Nebraska would benefit greatly.
Greatly.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be some years when it's really, really strong, and the SEC is going to benefit too, for sure. Now, the SEC's got to go to 9 conference games, but I think you'll see them do that, and then things will, even out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think you should root for 16. I think there's certainly room for trying to get 4 auto bids, and then there may be a 5th. The key for Nebraska is to continue to push forward in this realm of like, here's where we have to keep going. And continuing to invest, and then you've really, one thing that Dan has said that I haven't written about, what you really got to get right? You really got to get the player contracts right, because if you make bad decisions in revenue sharing and you deploy money to the wrong players, that's a decision that you cannot that easily, reverse. You can't.
Yep.
So you got to pick right a lot of times on that, and that goes for basketball too. How there's probably room to do an evaluation of how has Nebraska done under Fred Hoiberg with their transfers. Well, Bryce Williams is an A+. There are a lot of guys in that list that are not A+, and were misses. They were just flat out misses. And I feel like this year, that's not quite the way I put it. They haven't consistently hit on guards that they believed would be better shooters under them, who have not been better shooters. You got to recruit good shooters. Period. End of story. If you go and recruit a 31% 3-point shooter and think, well, he'll get better under us, that hasn't been the track record at Nebraska in the last 5 years. So if you want to recruit point guards that don't shoot very well, just expect them not to shoot very well here, because they've already created a track record somewhere else, and you're not likely to magically change that.
I agree. Sam, as always, appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Sam.
That's Sam McEwen. When I become the GM with Fred in the offseason, because Fred needs a GM.
Fred does need a GM.
We're going to pursue mid-major point guards.
Okay.
I mean, Fred's had more success hitting on mid-major guys than he has of bench guys out of Power 5.
If you're not shooting 37% from 3, we don't want you.
He does need a GM.
He does. I think everybody needs a GM.
That's true. We all need a GM.
We all need a GM.
I like my GM with my football team. Baseball team.
Yeah. Hit or miss.
I do like my GM with my basketball team.
I don't like any of my GMs.
That's not a good thing. What is a good thing is we're going to come back for hour number 3. Lots of emails off of last night. Plus, the Big Ten may announce something here in the future that I absolutely love. Love me some Big Ten football. Love me an idea that I think is a banger. We'll get into that when we come back. Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. Jimmy woke up today choosing violence. Welcome back in.
What's going on? I had no idea. This was not planned. Nice.
For people that don't know, you're going to have to explain what you just did.
Hawkamania, baby. I just took off my hoodie and I revealed my Hawkamania t-shirt. Go Blackhawks.
Nice.
This is a classic United Center street vendor. Hey, I'm walking down. That's a sick shirt. How much for that?
That is a great shirt.
He goes 22. I go, I'll give you 15. Deal. Bada bing, bada boom. Walk home with the t-shirt, baby. That's what this is. Hawkamania running wild on you, brother.
Hawkamania better than Hulkamania.
Oh, way better than
much more
Hulkamania.
inclusive.
So much more inclusive and way more bearable and tasteful, if you ask me.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Blackhawks have had their problems.
That just goes to show you.
yeah.
Oh well, yeah.
Is there anyone who doesn't have problems now? It's just
that's a good question. Let me think in sports real quick.
Gruden. No, Gruden's got problems.
I'm just thinking of anybody.
McVay.
I know Ant-Man. Ant-Man got the block on Shea last night.
That was awesome.
That was a banger of a game. The Timberwolves were done in that game and came back. They were down 25, came back and won. They were even down 16 with 3 minutes to go in regulation. Got the game to overtime. I don't know what Caruso was doing at the end of the game. That's for a Thunder fan to answer.
That's for Oklahoma City radio.
But
they're talking about the Sooners there.
T-Wolves won a big game last night in Oklahoma City.
They did. That was massive.
Western Conference Finals going to be fun.
Let's go Wolves.
Should we do an NBA? I wouldn't mind like next week if we did an NBA thing where we all picked who we thought would be the Western Conference and Eastern Conference Finals, and then we pick the champion. We're far into it enough, but far away enough.
We can do that in April.
Impressive.
And say that for the podcast.
Middle of April.
Say that for the podcast. You know something crazy in the NBA last night? Jokic had 19 assists. Like Denver finally beat a team that's above 500, first time since January.
I thought you were going to say since the finals.
So I saw, I got home. Couldn't go to bed. So you had Colorado and KU, and then the Oklahoma City Minnesota game was finishing. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander shot 17 free throws. You want to know how many free throws that Jokic shot last night?
I will guess
he had 19 assists.
I'm going to guess 4.
He had 19 points.
I'll guess 18 free throws.
18 free throws. You say 4? He didn't shoot a free throw last night.
Yeah, it's close.
Jokic in an NBA game did not shoot a free throw, and Denver beat Indy last night in Indianapolis.
He shot as many as Alex English.
This is a little bit of a discussion we don't necessarily have to get into, but Jokic yesterday had 19 assists, and Ant-Man had an incredible dunk, and the Timberwolves had a really big win that will be consequential for them when we come to seeding and whatnot. And yet, I'm on Twitter. I'm on sports Twitter. I'm scrolling through. It's how I get a lot of my feed. I didn't see one, I just feel like that's not marketed enough. I just feel like in general, when I'm scrolling through my Twitter and I'm looking at things and I'm trying to find stuff to talk about and inform myself, I just don't get enough of NBA highlights or look at this or look at that. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I'm not following the right people.
ESPN's fault.
But I just feel like
you didn't get Zach LaVine scoring 42 last night. We lit the beam. Thank God we were playing Charlotte.
I just think those things should be a little bit more. Am I wrong here, or is it my fault that I'm not following the right people, or is it I don't know?
Do you have NBA TV?
No, hell no.
That's part of the reason, right there. They actually cover the league.
Sure.
Well,
that's not your
the
fault.
Timberwolves are on. Michael Grady is fun to listen to. He's the television voice of the Timberwolves. Him and Jim Peterson. We're a Timberwolf town.
We are,
so you can watch that. But there's usually an NBA game on every night. I don't know. Maybe you are following the wrong people.
Yeah. I am. I'm just saying on a Twitter social media standpoint.
I think you're following the wrong people.
Twitter.
I think you're following the wrong people.
Marketing standpoint, not from I know if I want to watch the NBA, I can watch the NBA. I don't have a problem with
that. So on cue, where I think Fred needs a GM to help him.
Yeah.
Say, this is how we're going to do the roster. And then also we're going to invest in high school kids. Patino may not want to recruit high school kids, but Nebraska still has to recruit high school kids. And you know what? When we get them here, let's keep them here and let's let them play. So I say that Fred needs a GM. And I'd be more than willing as a ball knower to take on that role.
Can we be dual GMs?
No, I'm not sharing a GM.
Why? You don't trust me?
You should run your own team, and then you guys can compete.
I'll go to Iowa. I'll see if Fran or
Sounds
Ben
cold.
McCollum needs a new GM.
North Carolina has hired a GM. So Hubert Davis has talked about this. Everybody's hiring a GM. Everybody needs an assistant. North Carolina is hiring longtime NBA agent Jim Tanner as their general manager. I am not an NBA agent. I think that would probably preclude me. But the Banana Man just asked on Twitter, what about Craig Smith? So let me tell you about Craig Smith. So I'm a big fan of Craig Smith. Former assistant under Tim Miles, went to South Dakota, used what he did at South Dakota. Didn't make the tournament, but where South Dakota was to get him to a good spot. He used that to get the job at Utah State and then moved across the state from Logan to Salt Lake City to be head coach at Utah. 65-62 in 4 years, 0 trips to the NCAA tournament, 7-9 in the Big 12 right now. Ironically, back-to-back wins, high-profile wins over KU and K-State. Craig Smith was fired because Utah did not want him to have success at the end of the year because then they would be forced to pay him. So Utah athletics is in a little bit of a funk in terms of cash. They don't have the Mormon money that BYU does, that BYU can hand a high school star $5 million. And they also don't have the whale like BYU has with Ryan Smith, who owns the Jazz and owns the hockey team and donates big bucks to BYU. Why does everybody in college athletics have a T. Boone Pickens or a Ryan Smith, but Nebraska can't find Buffett? It is wild. Nebraska does not have their whale. In the past, so Dan Cook, the Cook Pavilion, and Mr. Cook passed away. Mr. Hawks was really, really great. He has passed away, but Nebraska has never had that young and they have a couple of people who I know donate, but they want to keep it private. But I also think there's a benefit to having somebody that's known in the community that is diehard GBR or diehard Creighton that donates a lot of money, and people go, man, if he can do it. Nebraska doesn't have that guy, which is still kind of wild. I don't know. Maybe I'm going down the wrong hole. BYU does. Utah doesn't. As a result, if Craig goes on a run to make the NCAA tournament, they have to do something with his contract. The timing is brutal. The timing is really, really odd. But that's what I think happened there. I don't know what's going to happen with Craig. Would he be the GM here? Probably not. But, you got to have a basketball knower in that role.
I don't want to call it like a thundercloud or anything like that, because I think that might be too negative. But you talk about I wonder who could be that big donor for Nebraska. And yet there's a man who's worth $149 billion who was born in Omaha, Nebraska, who, if I'm not mistaken, didn't the new College of Business at the University of Nebraska. I'm almost certain that a lot of that was built with, some of the things that he was able to provide for the school. So it's not like he's a stranger to donating. Now, I'm not saying that Warren Buffett needs to be Phil Knight and sitting courtside every night at, every Nebraska basketball game, and we need to put a camera on him at every football game in his owner's box. But it is one of those things where, you look around college sports and the teams that have good futures have big donors. SMU, Texas Tech, Oregon, BYU. There are a lot of these teams who are man, they're going to make a big impact. They're the ones who have the big money people who are willing to give that.
Nebraska has the Peds, and that relationship has gotten better, which is crazy, of a family that financially is very secure and would like to support Nebraska. They do support Nebraska. Hell, they basically fund the NIL themselves. Is that you would have a rift with them?
Yeah.
Which is absolutely friggin' crazy. At a place like Nebraska where there's only 1.9 million, instead of somebody that wants to give you a large amount of money, you find a way to work with them instead of fighting them.
Yeah.
Now, the relationship is a lot better most recently, but that would be somebody that would be involved. But at Utah, they don't really have that guy, and BYU does. And BYU's success, they go from Mark Pope to Kevin Young, and BYU basketball is still humming. And Utah's 7-9 in the Big 12, and your head coach is 65-62, even though he's a great guy and he just has 2 high-profile wins. The timing is bad, but that shows when you're in the power chair and you're like, man, we don't have to pay this guy because he might play himself into a new contract. You get rid of him after 16 games and you still have a couple of weeks to go. I mean, come on.
It's not a good look. It's just not a good look, and I think that's kind of, it sucks as a fan when your team loses games. It just hurts when your team doesn't have success. But I would say one of the worst things that can happen as a fan when you're rooting for, whether it be a pro team or whether it be a college team, is when they start kind of crying poor, and is when they start pinching pennies and when they start not investing in winning. That's when that's when things go a little bit south. And so that's, it's just not a good situation. I wonder, there probably is a ton of stress in Utah, considering the fact that your other major school in that state has a war chest of NIL money that they can kind of just splurge willy-nilly wherever they want, and get the best guys.
Hey, there's something that happened to BYU that I think we have to watch around college athletics with revenue sharing. where you're going to divide up the pie and who gets what. Like, would you rather pay an outside hitter for the Nebraska volleyball team more than a wing guy on the Nebraska men's basketball team? But at BYU, so now they have this $5 million to a high school player that's coming, the number one player in the country. And I guess some of the football players' monies off a 5-7 season prior to this year started to disappear. And so they took some of the NIL away from football to give it to basketball.
It's funny, though, where, and you're kind of alluding to it, but it'll be interesting to see. There really is no market, right, in college football. Like, there's no overarching market. Hey, this is what the top this guy or this girl cost. But there is a little bit of a market within your athletic department, right? And so you can, you got to be careful of, you're resetting the market within your athletic department, because if you pay this guy a lot of money, but then someone else becomes more valuable, then you almost have to be like, well, we got to pay that guy more money. So you have to really be cognizant of how you're maneuvering the money and how you're positioning yourself for the future, which is exactly why you should be hiring a GM who is a professional, who knows how to do that, and who is very strategic in making that thing happen.
So you basically just kicked me out of any opportunity to be the GM.
Yeah, if we're hiring a GM at Nebraska in any sport, we're going to have previous general managing
I've been
experience.
on the radio.
Jim Tanner, by the way. So this is crazy. Do you know that hoopshype.com has an agent ranking? They rank
I did not until right now.
Agents in the NBA based on how much money and how many players they are representing. And then they even have these bars of how many all-stars do they represent, how many maxed out players do they have. It's incredible. So the number one agent, can you guess the number one agent in the NBA?
Rich Paul.
Okay. Can you guess the second next agent in the NBA?
I do not know.
Jeff Schwartz.
Okay.
He's got $566 million, 41 players, 6 all-stars, and 2 maxed out players. Crazy. Jim Tanner, by the way, is 42nd on Hoops Hype agent rankings. He only represents 7 players with a total of $66 million. One of them is maxed out. That's Mr. Desmond Bain. He represents Luke Cornett. Great Vanderbilt player, great Celtic, great Bull. There you go. Representing the real guys. So Jim Tanner, an agent, which I don't know how much previous GM experience he has, but that's North Carolina's pick. Are you now looking at hoopshype.com agent rankings? It's interesting.
More rankings of Tanners, like Willie, Danny.
Look up for me, Mike Lindemann.
Yes. I was trying to remember. Thank you.
Oh, where he ranks on the Hoops Hype agent ranking?
As an agent.
Mike. He's 10th.
Okay.
Ooh,
he's a former Creighton basketball player.
10th.
He's at Excel Sports Management. I think he's still there.
He represents
He's at Excel Sports Management. He has 14 NBA players, 2 all-star players, 2 maxed out players. He's ranked 10th on Hoops Hype agent ranking. His top agent or top player is Nikola Jokic. Chris Middleton, great job negotiating that contract. Shout out to you, Mike. That was one hell of a deal. Tyler Hero, Derek White. Oh, even got the Zubac contract. Aaron Neesmith. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Io DeSumo.
Yeah, former, and it's I think he played here about 20 years ago. Yeah, Mike Lindemann doing pretty well in New York City for himself. We got an email here.
Oh, he's going to get paid too in the future. He's got Dalton Connect on here as well, and Topic as well.
Any
Either late first round or second round.
writes in the Echo Bacon Bucks. He goes, Gary, there's a lot of thoughts and a lot of emotions after last night's Nebraska game. As you know, I am a long-time Nebraska basketball fan. Yes, we go back and forth. He goes, there is a play from last night that is bugging me to know.
Oh, yes, let's do it.
He said, you were at the game, so you probably saw this. TV did not show the entire play. What happened when Bryce Williams inbounded and hit Raleigh Wooster in the side of the head? So this is what happened. This is after Michigan scored a bucket, and they're inbounding the ball, and Raleigh isn't even looking, and Bryce just throws it. It hits Raleigh on the left side of the head, It was about to bounce out of bounds, and Bryce went and saved it. I guess that was not on TV.
No, I was freaking out. So you see it happen. You see the ball go off of Riley's head, and then they just cut and like to a zoom in on Van Golden, and like you're like what's going on? And like the players are starting. Then they like Mia gets in the picture, and Mia started looking back, and I was waiting for Mia to like start running back or like to hear a whistle, and I didn't hear a whistle, and they just pan out, and then Riley's dribbling the ball.
Yeah, somehow, so Bryce immediately noticed it, and it was rolling out of bounds. And I think because it was Kelly Pfeiffer that was there on the baseline, I think everybody was shocked by it. The ball may have gone out of bounds. Who knows?
Really?
But Bryce saved it and then flipped it to him. Yeah.
It was that close.
So they did show that on TV.
They didn't.
Oh, they did. So they cut away right as it hit him in the head?
Hit him in the head, and they cut. It hit like I go whoa, because like they just made a bucket and they're getting a little momentum. It's early in the game and it goes off his head. I go whoa, and then it's like, and I'm freaking out. And I'm like, what the heck happened? And then just he starts dribbling the ball, and I'm like, all right, I think we're good. It was terrible TV, terrible production.
Yeah. So yeah, that would have been a play that would have summed up last night. All right, when we come back, so today is a day that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to talk, and we could have 12 AQs. And if you have 12, I think it has to be 16.
Has to be. Has to be.
But the Big Ten and the SEC are going to make some noise today.
Power chair.
But the Big Ten is going to do something as a add-on to this that I think is great. I loved COVID when there was an idea.
Fun.
This is on the same lines, and I love it. We'll get into that. We come back. Brian Christopherson will join us coming up at 9. All right, now I'm seeing this play. Oh, I can't imagine watching on TV when you see that.
Freaking out. Like, what the heck is going on?
Oh, wow.
And then you see
It
Braxton.
caught everybody in the building off guard.
Did you see Braxton looking back at like what the heck has happened? Like, I'm like, what is happening?
I think that'll be in the highlight film. It's Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. Have we seen Dylan Raiola today?
He was quickly put on yesterday on the broadcast. They didn't really pan the camera to him.
I guess I was wearing black, just like everyone else.
Did he have a new haircut? Because Patrick Mahomes and his wife were courtside in Lubbock last night, and Patrick post Super Bowl has cut the lettuce.
No new haircut yet. I knew about this because it was all over TikTok.
Well,
not my TikTok.
ESPN showed a lot of the Mahomes last night. I think ESPN showed more of the Mahomes at the Texas Tech Houston game than Taylor Swift was shown in her last couple of trips to Arrowhead. Like every time there would be like a big Texas Tech play, I would see a cutaway to Mahomes.
Dude hits the putt.
What happens first? Dylan shows up with a Jalen Hurts jersey or with a new Patrick Mahomes haircut? Can I get a ba-dum-tsh, please? Because that was a funny joke.
It'll be a haircut.
That was a funny joke.
There is a joke for people in the Big East. There is an outrage going on in the Big East. This actually ironically was on TikTok. As of right now.
By the way, the answer is yes, Matt. You should get on.
Thank you.
As of right now, the Peacock has the early games in the Big East tournament. Creighton has been blessed to have now back-to-back games on Peacock. They'll be on Peacock on Wednesday night against DePaul. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. I think attendance will be for that. That's where they should have done the $1 beer.
Yes.
Oh my God. By the way, I want to reiterate this right now. $1 beer, they need to figure it out for next year. I mean, it was still, I'm still upset about how big of a disaster that was.
Did you have
the
fun?
UConn game? No, I didn't.
Okay.
I did.
Then we need to ensure you have fun.
You're right. Should be tomorrow. $1 beer.
So Seton Hall, UConn, and St. John's all could play their first game at MSG on Peacock. The Big East TikTok is not happy.
Oh, why?
Well, people don't want to get Peacock. People on the East Coast are cheap.
You don't get Fanta on Peacock. Our friend.
Yeah, I might be on the lower end of the John Fanta Express than most people are, but he's a fine announcer.
He's a friend of the show. So
he's been getting a lot of run.
People
are calling him the voice of college basketball. It's pretty damn good.
All right, to college football. So today there is a meeting going on, right? There
is a little meeting.
The SEC and the Big Ten.
It's a little meeting. It's not a big meeting at all. That definitely doesn't decide like the future of college football. It's just a slight
the
little.
four families are getting together.
It's a slight little meeting.
But they're going to unveil kind of what they're thinking. So the momentum to further expand the college football playoff from 14 to 16 teams is all in play here, where you get 4 AQs and the Big 12 and the ACC get a couple. So if you're going to have that many, you're probably going to have 16 teams. But then do you still have buys? Or do you just, because life is better. I'm going to give you a little advice over there, young man.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed
Hey, I still take your advice. I'm not as young as him.
College football, which would like to be a standalone, can learn something from college basketball. The television networks did not combine to pay $8.8 billion for an event in March that doesn't have a bracket. Brackets matter. We get excited about brackets. Okay, brackets that we can understand. We're still a little bit fishy on the play-in games, and then why when I get my bracket that 16 spot is open or that 11 spot has 2 teams in it. We're still, people are still trying to figure that out.
Why do I got to scroll all the way up to the top in order to pick the play-in games? And then, wait, I get punished for the play-in? They're not even in the tournament. Wait, I don't know who's going to be. Wait, I'm not a fan of that.
But you got the bracket. The bracket makes the March Madness. We have a bracket. People like to look at the bracket. They understand the bracket. The bracket is talked about. Everybody looks at the bracket. From the beginning of the tournament to the end of the tournament, they're always looking at the bracket. College football would love to have the bracket, but would they like to have a straight bracket of 1 through 16, no buys? Or do they say, you know what? In the NFL and in, United League Soccer or whatever,
USL.
UEFA.
Oh, okay. UEFA?
Yeah. UEFA. That's probably what it's called, right?
Yeah. That's exactly what it's called.
I don't get up on Saturday mornings to watch the Premier League. Not that I'm opposed.
You use the full governmental name. You are the first person ever to use the full governmental name of UEFA. It's UEFA. That's incredible.
I think that's...
I've never heard it. I didn't even know that was the acronym. You just did the U and the E and the F and the A, and I go, oh, yeah, UEFA.
I'm old.
I wouldn't have known either.
But if you get to 16, do you have a straight bracket where then the top 8 teams all get a home game and there are no byes? Or do we have a quirky bracket where you still have byes in a 16-team format? But at the end of the day, the bracket matters.
But how would you, if you had 16,
I would be quirky.
How would you, what's the quirk? So wait, do the 1 and 2 get double byes, and then the 2 and 3 get single byes, and so then the other team's got to play way more game. Just do one.
But if you do just 16 and you have no byes, everybody's got to win 4.
Yeah.
And the top 8 seeds get a home game.
Yeah.
And then you go to the quarterfinals, which I think you could disperse out of the New Year's 6 bowl sites.
Absolutely.
And then you get into the
I hope
semifinals and then wherever the championship game is. So that's something I'm also curious about. But with that said, and the Big Ten having 4, and trust me, Nebraska should be a big fan of 16-team playoff, because then, there might be some years where the Big Ten gets 5 or 6, and that would help you. By chance if you go 6-3 in your conference. But here's what I love that can be an offshoot.
Okay.
I don't know if you were paying much attention to Big Ten football back in the COVID year.
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you remember the Barry Alvarez idea?
Okay, I don't know. No, I don't remember the Barry Alvarez idea.
That at the end of the year, to give everyone an extra game in the middle of December, they would have like championship week.
Okay.
Yeah. Nebraska won that week.
They did.
They beat Rutgers.
They
we thought
beat
the game
Rutgers.
was Saturday.
They played championship week, and they beat Rutgers.
Game. Okay.
So there is an idea that is out there that is not just an idea. I think it's going to come to fruition, that the Big Ten will have a championship weekend where, with their 4 bids, automatic, the 1 and the 2 are guaranteed, essentially. So they would play each other. Then the 3 would play the 6, and the 4 would play the 5.
Lord.
So
yes.
it gives you incentive
yes.
that the conference season throughout in the Big Ten matters. So you might not be in the top 4, but you have a chance to become one of the 4 on championship weekend. Now, the other thing I'm hearing that could be add even more to this, because now I'm getting giddy. More football is always better, is that the 1, the 2, and the 3 would host.
Yeah.
So you make it difficult to go 1, 2, and the 3 and the 4 would wait a minute. Yeah, no, the 1, the 3, and the 4 would host. So, or 1 and 2 would go to Indianapolis, and then the 2 verse or the 3 verse 6 and the 4 verse 5, they would host at their stadium the first weekend in December. So you could maybe have the Big Ten could have a Friday night game to determine an automatic bid 4 verse 5 in Bloomington, Indiana, Illinois, let's say.
That'd be a great game.
And then Saturday, like at 11, you could have the 3 play Iowa.
Yeah.
Okay, at the 3 site. And then later that night is 1 versus 2, but that's a neutral site. How great an idea is that?
I'm all for
I'm in.
Things that make the season matter later into the year more often. And what I mean by that is look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois really early in the year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And your classic BCS 1 and 2 championship style.
Good old days.
They would be done. It did not matter that they won out from the rest of for the rest of the year. It would have been Oregon taking on Georgia, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because you have a playoff, their season continues to matter. With Notre Dame, I mean, you can maybe even make the argument that one loss there would have been debate of whether or not they get kept out of the 4-team playoff, right? Because you have to consider, hey, what happens to Ohio State and what happens to Texas and whatnot. I've always loved the playoff because it makes the season matter longer down the line,
Mm-hmm.
right? And some people would say, well, you get to mess up more. Yeah, that's sports. That's what sports is. It's about handling adversity, and that's where the best sports stories come from. Teams losing or going through tough times and being able to rally and win, right? I feel like these formats allow that to happen more. And so when you're talking about having 6 teams who could possibly make the 4 qualifying bids that make the automatic 16-team playoff, it makes the season matter a little bit more, right? There are more teams who are, like Minnesota football would be like literally hanging on to an opportunity to get that 6th seed and potentially make the college football playoff. There would be talks about college football playoff berths for Minnesota football in November. Like, that's good. That's fun for fan bases. That's enjoyable for football. So I'm all for it. Now, I do think that at this point, that could have some outside external effects of, if I'm a team in the Big Ten, you're kind of looking at certain schedules and you're like, well, now the Big Ten season is the season that matters. Now the conference season is really what matters. I don't know if I want to travel to Florida to go and play the Gators. I don't know if I want to travel to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. I don't know if I want to host South Carolina. Maybe we instead do 3 non-Power 5 teams every single year as our preseason, so we are ready to go for the all-important Big Ten season. That could be an external effect of what this could bring.
There's also another thing that I like. Now, there's stuff about what's going to be moving forward that people are not going to like, but make it easier on the committee. Straight seating. I know the Big Ten and the SEC are all into straight seating, which you could actually do in 2025.
Yeah.
But it takes, everybody's got to be in for it. Like, everybody in 25 has a vote. 26, it's the Big Ten and the SEC. So they are meeting right now. They've started in Dallas. They are focusing on operations and some possible changes to 2025, but not 2026 yet. But straight seating would make it so much easier. Like, you would take it out of the hands, basically, of the committee. Like, the committee wouldn't have to go, good win, bad win, what are the eye test, all of that kind of stuff. So there is like some smart things, but this will not be for everybody. But I'm telling you, championship weekend, a tribute to Barry Alvarez, that would be for everyone. Can you imagine, for a chance to get into the playoff, you're hosting a playoff game on the first weekend of December?
Now, I got a question for you.
Which you would think, hey, aren't we the third place team? Shouldn't we be in? Nope. You got to earn it on the field. You know what? Like that commercial, Jimmy, you're old.
Yes.
Earn it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about.
Earn it.
Thanks, Mean Joe. Different.
Thanks,
commercial.
Brett. Go get him, champ. Hey, would you do reseeding? For like how they do in the NFL? Would you do reseeding in college football? I love reseeding. I love a good reseeding. I love a good, well, if we win here and they win there, then we host here or they host there. I enjoy that. I enjoy the mathematics. I enjoy the excitement, because then it gets other fans of other teams more involved in other games.
I'm open if it's straight seating.
So, yeah, I mean, it would be straight seating.
Say like the NFL.
But like this year would have been kind of quirky because the seating to begin with was all messed up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you could not do the seating this year was absolutely terrible. I mean, the fact, like, people go, well, the bye didn't work out because the 4 teams that were on the bye ended up losing. No, the 4 teams on the bye were all underdogs. Like, in those quarterfinal games, all those teams were favored to lose, and that had everything to do, had nothing to do with the bye. It had everything to do with the seating. So yeah. Straight seating, and I'd like reseeding. Hey, mix it up a bit. Why not?
Doesn't hockey do this after round 1?
No.
They used to.
Hockey, not anymore. They no longer. But hockey's got their own problem with the Metropolitan and the Central Divisions. They should just go back to
Campbell,
1 versus 8 and 1 versus 8.
Are we going to have to engage in a conversation in the Big Ten about going back to divisions? If you're going to do this, I mean,
I think that
pull out the Bible of tiebreakers to try and figure out who all these teams are.
The team with the prettiest uniforms.
We're going to use net ranking like the Summit League in order to do tiebreakers.
Problem with now that we've expanded to 18, if you're going to talk about divisions, you're not going to do 2 because then you'd be limited to 8 conference games and then 1 crossover. So you'd be doing the pod again, but
I don't think
you can't do the pod until you get to 20.
Right.
Oh, I don't think you can. I don't think you can do divisions because then you're just going to have the same Big Ten West, Big Ten East nightmare. And there's just no way if you're doing it regionally that you can't have the East way more stacked than the West, because the East is going to have to be, if you just do 2, it's going to have to be Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State together.
Yeah.
And even if you do it like regionally pod, you're going to have Ohio State and Michigan in the same division, no matter how you slice it.
I don't think they would find a way not to have them together.
I hope they would. If you were just
legends.
doing it true regional, like if you're just true to the region, they would.
Yeah, I think the people on the West Coast would be upset if we did that and it was just the 4 West Coast schools.
Yeah, then
the travel's good for them.
I don't think
that's what they wanted.
I don't think they would do But you're right. The tie-breaking situation is gonna be an absolute nightmare because it can get pretty crowded in the 6, 7, 8 department.
But what a great thing. You finished 6th in the Big Ten, which you're still going to have a really good record, and you still have a chance to make the playoff. But you have to go on the road and play the 3 seed at 11 a.m. on Saturday, the first weekend of December.
It's a tough game.
John says, text in, reseeding sucks. Play the games. That's why they call it a bracket buster and why we love Cinderellas. We only love Cinderellas in the first weekend. We want brands on the second weekend. That's how we are. That's how life is. Life is better with a bracket. And college football could have a straight seeding 16-team bracket.
Let me look here. I'm trying to find. Sorry.
We'll take a break while you do that.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's bad radio.
I'm sorry. I was trying to find the former Big Ten standings to tell you what the matchups would be and what the tiebreakers would be, but the Mac computer is falling apart right now.
I think we would have what Indiana and Illinois would have met this year to determine who gets that berth.
I can't find it. I believe you. Yeah.
Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone. All right, so here would, if we had the format for Big Ten Championship weekend this past year, you would have still had Oregon and Penn State playing in Indy. Then you would have had 2 play-in games. So Oregon and Penn State would have been guaranteed to be in the playoff. And then the other 2 automatic qualifiers would come from number 3 Indiana against number 6 Iowa, or number 4 Ohio State versus number 5 Illinois. And then that would have been your 4 AQs. Now, there could have been, you could get a 5th team. You could maybe even get a 6th. This would have been the SEC weekend.
Oh.
Because the SEC may follow suit and do the same thing. Texas, Georgia would have continued to play in Atlanta. Then you would have had Tennessee, South Carolina. But how about Alabama, LSU to get into the playoff?
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah.
We would watch.
Well, it would have been an outrage because Ole Miss, because of the tiebreakers, because there was a 5-way tie for 4th, would not have been in the play-in, but could they get in as maybe the 5th team if, like, Alabama beats LSU?
Sure. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm looking here, like, I was hoping for more chaos in terms of, like, because I'm trying to do the math here. On the final weekend of the season, if you would have, because I'm trying to figure out, like, could there have been some drama here? And there really couldn't have been any drama. Like, if this team, like, other than, well, if Illinois or Iowa loses, then maybe Michigan or Minnesota could have gotten in. If I'm just looking at the standings here, like, that's what I want. I want the drama more than anything, because you love the matchups, right? Mm-hmm. Of the 1 versus the 2 and the 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. I want the drama of, it's the final week of the college football season, and everybody has to watch Rutgers play Iowa. Because if Rutgers could beat Iowa, that means that if Nebraska beats this team, then Nebraska's in. Like, I want the drama of who's going to get the last 6. Like, my sicko Big Ten brain wants to pay attention to all of not the non-marquee matchups. I want to pay attention to all the terrible, cold November weather matchups that really in any other season would be absolutely meaningless. But because now we have this format, it means everything. That Maryland could potentially beat Minnesota, which would mean that Iowa could get into the 6th spot. That's what I want.
When would you start your college football season then?
What do you?
Because you're adding another week before you have championship weekend. When would you start?
Yeah, probably, honestly, with how much break time you have in between, like the conference championships, and then I think you have another 2 weeks, right? 3 weeks in between conference championship week and when you're playing. This year? Yeah, 2 weeks. You have enough time where you can add in that extra week to play. So I don't think you have to move the game up or back or anything like that.
You'd have to start the season earlier.
Okay.
Because teams need at least 1 bye. Most are getting 2.
Sure.
And then you're adding a weekend after. Well, I don't know when you do it, because in the Big Ten's case, Michigan and Ohio State want to play on the final weekend.
Yeah.
So the championship weekend is the following weekend. I don't know where you would slip in your idea.
No, not my idea. No, it's not my idea. I'm just talking about the last week of the season. Like, I'm excited for the last week of the year, like the last week that Michigan and Ohio State play, all those other Big Ten matchups that happen. I'm saying I'm excited that those meaningless
but
matchups.
Aren't they going to stay? Aren't they going to stay the same? So it'd be Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa.
Oh, sure.
Nebraska.
No, I was just throwing out, like, I was just being stupid and throwing out ideas about how, what they play and what they mean. The fact that they can matter more.
David writes into the Equitable Bank inbox. I haven't checked on David after last night's Nebraska game. I haven't had a chance to listen to anything today. But if Random Mike calls in and says, you don't think it would be better for Nebraska to go to the NIT and win a few games at PBA than maybe lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament, I'm going to lose it. He has not called in. And is that really a thing?
That he thinks it's better for the NIT than the NCAA tournament?
I've heard people say that in the
Did I miss
past.
he maybe called in last year?
I don't know. I can't remember last Monday, let alone last year. Did we have dinner last night? Either way, that's a wrong opinion.
Well, Nebraska Ball Mike did call in today.
No, he means Random Mike.
Random Mike. My bad.
No, Random Mike's ready for the Cubs.
So if Nebraska doesn't make the NCAA tournament, this is a big if. Wouldn't they play in the inaugural college basketball crown in Vegas?
Is that what I was seeing last night?
They'd play in the crown. How many
Hey.
Husker fans do you think will go out to watch the Huskers in the crown?
6 that happen to be there for spring break.
It's still Vegas.
It
There
is.
are people that would go, but man, you know that Fox owns this. They are humping this. They don't
Last
have
night,
March
yeah.
Madness, but they are trying to make the college basketball crown like the biggest thing.
Who cares?
Where'd the NIT go?
Yeah.
What happened to the NIT? Did we get rid of the NIT?
For me, I would watch college basketball crown if it was teams that already got eliminated from the tournament.
I thought for a second that's what it
Oh, you
was.
mean-
I was like, okay.
Like you lost in the 8-9 game, but your season is still live,
Yeah.
so you go to Vegas?
You go to Vegas.
Go to the baby
You
tournament.
want to keep playing,
Yeah.
Like, hey, we'll get invited. We'll get paid to go and play out there. Hey, it's $1 million for our, athletic department if we go and win the crown tournament. I'll go and do
you
that.
You guys enjoy Milwaukee. We're going to go to Vegas.
Or it's like, a 7 seed ends up losing to a 2 seed in the round of 32. And, like, all right, we'll go to Vegas. We'll finish the season out there. I would watch that.
Screw this, guys. We don't want to spend another day in Lexington. Let's go to Vegas.
Let's go to Vegas.
You know what?
Why
Many
not?
people
Hey.
have said that.
Or what if a team
Let's
lost in
pull-
the Elite Eight and they're like, 6 days rest? That's nothing. We'll go to the crown.
Yeah, I think those guys would be like, you know what? I think I'm going on spring break.
Yeah.
You might have some Fresno State involved, though.
Yeah, in Vegas. Yeah. What? That's incredible. That
Not
was-
shocking.
Yeah.
Brian
they're
Christopherson's going to join us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, little note here before we get to Brian Christopherson. Y'all will get to meet the Kale Shorts, Phil Simpson, and Phil Snow tomorrow. And then I guess Mike and then in March, Mike Eckler and Addison Williams, Terry Braden will meet. And then the next Tuesday in March, Matt Rule will meet with everybody. The Nebraska will begin spring practice on March 24th. Nebraska's Pro Day will be March 25th. Do what you will with that information, but tomorrow we will have content. We now have good content with Brian Christopherson, who is over his cold. Good morning.
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
How are you doing?
I feel good.
How would you describe to a first-time college basketball viewer last night's game at PBA?
Maybe this is my warped personality. I sort of enjoyed it. It was such a grinder of a game, times 100, that at some point, like, it was about 11 minutes in when I realized nobody besides Bryce Williams had scored for Nebraska. I realized that the entire time, but it was really sinking, like, this is a thing now. And then Connor Essegian scored a basket, I think at the 11.5-minute mark. And I was like, all right, I am going to fully embrace what this is about. The thing is, Nebraska was 13-1, I believe, in games where they held teams to under 70 points or less. And how about holding a team under 50 and still losing? Yeah. So that's the kind of kick in the jewels about the whole thing, I guess.
Is this season now, after yesterday's game, do you get the vibe that it's just, hey, make it to the tournament, and if you win a game, you win a game. If you don't, you don't?
Yeah, I mean, it's still out there for them.
Yeah,
that possibility, and they got to protect home court the rest of the way. Minnesota's been playing better basketball, and there's a logjam in those Big Ten standings too, where there's sort of been this talk about Nebraska getting a bye and stuff. Like, you got to be very careful here about slipping down and being like the 14th seed in this thing.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done. So, I think Fred hit the right tone in the post game that he had to after a tough defeat like that. It's like, that's what I need from you guys, defensive energy wise, the rest of the way. And if you give me that, a few more shots are going to fall, and we're going to get over the top over these other teams. So I think that was the right tone, but it was definitely a missed opportunity because there was just so many. I felt like good looks that were missed. I know Michigan did a nice job defensively and shrunk the floor on Nebraska. Nonetheless, there were these plays where Jawan just didn't settle his feet, and Andrew Morgan had one that should have been an and one, and I mean, all those just come back to bite you in the tail when it's all said and done.
That was such a nuclear level of sickness last night watching
Yes.
That basketball game. All right, let's get off of basketball. Let's go to football.
Okay.
So there's a lot of proposals out there on what they're going to do with the college football calendar. They're going to move the portal, spring game, no spring game. There's a lot of discussion. We just need somebody to take the lead. And I think Jed Fish has done this. He has proposed a portal window of April 15th to May 15th, and then doing, like the NFL, OTAs. So we are kind of NFL light. But let's talk about the product on the field. Is there a way, because I think the product on the field, the way the game is played, is really good. But if they make these kind of changes where you could have a portal window in April and April 15th to May 15th, but then you get your newcomers and your transfers on that you can work out with them and have like structured OTAs before the season begins. Do you think there are changes out there in the calendar that actually can help benefit the product on the field?
Yeah, that's not a terrible idea on the surface by Fish. So his is, what were the dates again? It was April 15th through the 25th.
So basically you wouldn't have spring ball as we know it. And then the portal would open April 15th to May 15th. And then during that, when you start like the summer semester, The newcomers, the portal guys are there. Your newcomers are there. And then you can have like OTAs. Like you can have 12 practices, some padded and some not padded, or do the normal spring football schedule in college football. You just do it like in the beginning of May or the middle of May to maybe the middle of June. And then you get another month off. You're still working out and everything before you start camp.
You know, as you're saying that, I'm going to answer selfishly and say I would push back initially on it because I'm right now, like I'm thinking of like the last even week or two, and I'm just like kind of going stir crazy. Like I'm happy that there's media access tomorrow, but I almost feel like there's a lot to be said for that window of spring practices, even if people don't think it's much, where you get content and you keep it going. And so I don't know if there's a way where you know, you could shorten the spring calendar in March, April, where you get 10 practices, and then there is that window for the portal you're talking about, and then perhaps like you extend and have some more OTA type stuff. I wonder if you can get the best of both worlds, but I do like that people are trying to think through how do we get past sort of like the December crush that everybody felt a couple months ago, because I honestly feel like everybody in college football has sort of been trying to decompress from that and it come back after that crazy month. And so there does have to be a better way, but I don't know. As a media guy, I am like craving spring football right now in a strange way, and that I haven't in the past. So it just feels so quiet around here. So I am glad we have access tomorrow with Phil Simpson, Phil Snow, and DeKill Shorts.
I think a common conversation we're having in college football now, Brian, is that coaches are getting less and less time to develop programs. That just throughout the entirety of the sport, just coaches aren't getting as long as a leash as they used to. The Big Ten and SEC now and all the other conferences are talking about the future of the college football playoff. And, you know, it seems like we're probably going to go to a 16-team playoff. If that were to happen, do you think that shortens the leash in the eyes of the athletic department on coaches that they hire? That they have to get there. And now that there's 16 teams, you have to get. We're not just giving you 3-4 years anymore. We expect in 2 to 3 to be competing for those spots. Do you think the expansion of the playoff does that?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it just gets shorter and shorter anyway. Like it used to be, like you always had 4 to 5 years, and now it feels like it's more 3 to 4. And I think what you're saying is probably true. You might start to get closer to that like 2 to 3 year window where, okay, you didn't get to the, you know, a bigger field and make it and make waves. You're gone. So I do think there would be more pressure with that. So that, I mean, that's the good thing for coaches, I guess, is that there's more slots open to get in the playoff, but there is that other side of it where it's like, okay, you didn't get there. All right. It's time to look a different direction. So I don't love that because I'm probably a more patient guy with coaches than some people. And I feel like you should almost get at least 4 years in most cases, unless it's just completely off the rails. But I do think you're onto something where the more you open up the field to people, the pressure's on. Like you got to get in there. You got to be a presence, and our program has to be heard from.
So there's a part of like talking about this calendar, and if you look at players that have off-season surgeries, like right when the season is over, I mean, would they be in line to go, okay, you don't have to be healthy until the middle of May, and you can participate in OTAs instead of completely missing spring football? And what this is going to lead me into. So, you know, as we're all jonesing for some college football coverage, 24/7, which you are part of, did there, and it was, you had to scroll down. And so I was like, okay, I want to see this. College football's breakout second-year players on offense. And there's a lot of Miami guys on there. And you're scrolling, you're like, oh, okay, I remember that name from Clemson. Then you get to Carter Nelson, who is on the 24/7 list of potential sophomore breakout stars. Here's a guy who had off-season surgery. We don't know what his availability will be for spring ball. But what do you think? Because he's going to be a fascinating guy coming into the fall, BC. The wide receiver room is deeper.
Mm-hmm.
There's Harburg at tight end. Nelson's a tweener, but he's in an offense that is probably better for him in his skill set. What do you think? Like, if he's going to be a breakout guy, what does a breakout season in year 2 look like for Carter Nelson, who made the adjustment from 8-man to 11-man and ended up with 10 catches and a touchdown, but played all 13 games?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it probably looks more like it's an interesting question because actually they could be potentially deep at like tight end, and if he's going to play more of that, like I think Harburg is going to fit really well there. I think everybody was starting to fall more in like with Luke Lindenmeyer and sort of what his skill set is, and then Mac Markway is still over there, you know, like after his injury, and I know he was is fired up to get back out there. So I think Carter could have a season of progress if he gets fully healthy, and he could catch like 25 to 30 balls. And some people might say, well, that's not enough. I expected more of a hike than that. But I think if other guys around him are sort of maximizing what we think they can do, and you threw, you had 25 catches from Carter Nelson mixed in with that, and you were able to accent his skill set to a higher degree than that first season, then I think that would be a success. So something like that, probably in that 25, 30 catch range. But, the first things first is just getting healthy from that. I know it was a tricky surgery, and I've heard it, maybe it could take up to 6 months or whatever the timetable was there. And so I just hope by the summer, especially, you don't rush it too quickly, and he feels like he's got his feet under him and he's just ready to attack the fall like we know he can and has the capabilities because he is a freak athlete.
So Ben Scott, Micah Mazuka, there's Billy Kemp IV, there's Jamal Banks, there's Isaiah Nair, there's Marcus Washington. All those were former transfers that came into Nebraska. And what all those guys have in common was that they were former Power 5 guys. And we've seen this with Matt Rule and his transfer classes. It was a lot of heavy upside Power 5 players. But this season, we've seen him dip into the non-Power 5 talent pool and take guys who are high production dudes in non-Power 5 teams. Jalen George, Marquise Watson-Trent, and Andrew Marshall. If those three guys, and it was a bit of a change of a strategy, and you and I had talked about earlier, about a month and a half ago, about how maybe Kurt Signetti and his success with Indiana might have affected that. But do you think if those three players, those non-Power 5 guys, end up being high production players for Nebraska this season, that it could even more shift Matt Rule's mindset toward transfer portal guys he's going out and acquiring from where they're coming from?
Possibly. I mean, I think you got to look at every case on its own, but
Sure.
I do think you got to go back to like the press conference when he said he was talking sort of about Marquez Watson-Trent and just being grateful, like guys who's like, hey, I never had a 21 meal plan in a week at my previous school. I didn't look at all this stuff, and there's no they're not spoiled at all by it, but instead it's like, man, this is incredible. And I want to maximize the resources I have around me because I just haven't been around that. I do. When Rule was saying that, I was kind of nodding my head because I was thinking that there is a lot to be said for that sort of hunger, that Rocky, you grew up in the Rocky IV, like you were up in the cabin in the woods training previously, and now look at all these resources before them, and now you can combine what you've done in the past with that. So I think that could be a successful formula. But, I think the thing mostly that I like about those guys, but first off, Watson-Trent is just the productivity level. It's proven. And I think he's going to be a really good resource for Vincent Shavers and some young guys like that. I think Jalen George is a guy that people should not sleep on, because I think if you're talking about wild cards, like on the D line who, okay, how am I looking at this position group right now? And if I have question and I view it as maybe a question mark, how could that change? It's somebody like Jalen George, hitting the ground running. And do not forget that he was one of the first visitors in December.
on him.
Mhm.
They really liked what he was about, and he was a high-profile guy to them. So people aren't talking as much about him. But if he hit, as much as we get into like Van Poppel and Keona Davis and all these guys, like a guy like George, like fitting in and giving you quality reps would go a long way for how we're viewing that defensive line in September, October, as opposed to how some may question it now.
Hey, if Nebraska makes the playoff 26-27, this whole discussion about Nebraska, Tennessee just completely disappears, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a big thing this fall, if you go play good ball and you win 9 games or something, I think you kind of take it off the table a little bit, where people get more focused on, okay, they got to 6-3 in the league or whatever. And I know you guys were laying out the format that's being suggested earlier about like, the 5 and 6 seeds possibly in the league. Like if you could have like a play-in Saturday to get into the playoff and stuff like that. All that tells me it is really about league play. What can you get done in conference? Can you position yourself as one of the top 4 teams? I'm not here to play defense attorney for what they did. I understand there's some people really disappointed that game got taken off the table, but it is seriously going to come down to what did you do within Big Ten play? Like, can you get to 6-7 wins and be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the league every year, and get to a spot Nebraska just hasn't been to in a long time? I think Matt Rule talks a lot about, like, you want to be relevant like those last couple of weeks of the season. This is the year you want to see Nebraska where they are 5-2 in the league or something like that heading to those final 2 games, and you feel like anything could happen. So I do think they have the opportunity to just go play good football and take some of these off the sort of outside the window discussions about scheduling and all that take our time in the off season. They could remove those by doing well.
So tomorrow, the media will be able to talk to associate head coach Phil Snow. I think, he's associate head coach. I think it's been made out to be that he's kind of the right-hand man to Matt Rule, but he's not a position coach and he's not a coordinator. And I still think that there are kind of slight question marks on what is he really doing? Like, what impact does he really have on the program? When you, and I know you'll be there, when you talk to Phil Snow tomorrow, what are you hoping to get out of that convo? What are you hoping to find out after that presser?
I think it'll be interesting kind of getting into like how he's gotten to know John Butler and like what that relationship is like. Obviously, there's intrigue because we haven't really had a direct chance to talk to Phil Snow, and just his relationship with Matt Rule and how that's evolved over the years and how he thinks that trust was built to the point that he is such a valuable resource in the program now, and all those various things. But I think just sort of what impact he wants to have with the defensive side of the ball and how he wants to be a sounding board for John Butler and the various things they're doing. I think you want to maybe get into when he looked at last season, what are the 3 or 4 bullet points that he would highlight that are the difference between being the team we were just talking about in the previous answer that wins 7 games in the league and being like a 3-6, 4-5 kind of conference team. So like what does he see as that has to be the next step, and what are ways they might be able to do that? So it is going to be really interesting talking to him, and I honestly think it's going to be a real shot in the arm for everybody. I seriously have been kind of moping around like we need some football like back like stuff like that in the discussion, and that's where whatever they do with the calendar, I hope it's sort of like it's spread out enough that there's something to kind of to wet our whistle, I guess.
Brian, I feel like you're searching for a purpose here. I got to ask you, on Sunday, this last Sunday, were you sitting on your couch thinking, man, I would love Sunday night football right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do go through withdrawals without football. And I've honestly, like, I get why the spring games are leaving. This is a different discussion, but
go ahead.
I've actually been thinking about it. Kind of stinks that there's not going to be that. Like, I mean, even if it is sort of a facade and all that. There's something about it, like everybody sort of, we can pretend well, like I like that we can, that we've go over there and we can put 60,000 people, and it has that feeling of like, this is kind of a football tradition. And all that stuff, I do think we have to be careful about. Like, I get why it could be gone. But I honestly, in the last couple of weeks, I've thought I'm going to kind of miss that thing, just having it there as a staple that you can kind of set your watch to and all that stuff. And so, yeah, all this stuff, like tomorrow, I do think Rule does a great job letting his staff be out there, and the fan base getting to know them a little bit. And so I think this is great that the next 2 weeks they're going to do that. And I don't think we should take it for granted in the media that's available. It is important.
I agree. BC, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you, my friend.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. You think agents with revenue sharing and contracts, because the agents are pushing back against the spring game because their clients don't have a chance to showcase themselves. Do you think that agents will have more power in the new revenue sharing days where there's contracts?
Until there is a collective bargaining agreement, I think it's just really up in the air of who has what power and what power belongs where. I really do. And until there is a sheeted piece of paper that says this is how we're going to do things and this is how things are going to be conducted, I don't think anyone can really predict who's going to be in the power chair, as you would like to say.
Think we'll have holdouts?
Yeah. I am shocked we haven't had a holdout yet. Like, I am really shocked that there hasn't been a holdout, like not just from like a Nebraska standpoint, but just from a national big star holdout standpoint. I've talked about this with my friends the other day. The fact that there hasn't been this big time transfer portal target that was like, I'm not getting my money, and decides not to show up. I'm shocked that hasn't happened yet.
22 past the hour. We'll take a break. Come back. We'll catch up on some emails. Lots of Nebraska basketball talk this morning after their loss to Michigan. Nebraska's off until Minnesota on Saturday. Creighton tomorrow night takes on DePaul. Be in town to support your Chicago brothers?
I will be there.
And then Omaha plays for the Summit League Championship outright. Toughest game of the year against Oral Roberts on Saturday. We'll come back. We'll get emails, some tweets, and some texts on 1620 The Zone. I just tweeted this out. This was before you were born.
Wasn't that long ago?
So Nebraska baseball.
It was pretty long ago. All right, it was decently long ago.
Big Red's last season was 97. This is before Dave Van Horn took over. So John Sanders was a long-time baseball coach here at Nebraska, from Grand Island. And when I first started doing Nebraska baseball, like where it was the last couple of years, but John had this thing where if the weather was nice, back then you could play as many games as you want. There was no restriction of 56.
Get the game.
So what he would do, like if the weather was going to be nice and there was no game scheduled, he'd call up Bob Gates, the late Bob Gates at Omaha. He'd call up Peru State, Wayne State. He'd call any small school and say, hey, we'll feed you guys. And you get to, we'll let you into Memorial Stadium if you come and play a doubleheader. So this would be like at 9 a.m.
That's awesome.
I tell this great story. When we started doing more and more Nebraska baseball on the radio at KLIN in Lincoln, so John would call up, let's say, Peru State at 9, schedule a doubleheader for 2. So Peru State would have to get their players together, get in the vans, drive to Lincoln. They'd roll in like at 12:30, take a little BP, a little infield, outfield. We'd be ready to play at 2.
That's awesome.
So John would call him at 9. John then would call me at 10 and go, Gary, and he had this huge booming voice. Got Peru State for 2 today. Weather's great. A lot of people are going to be at Buck Belzer. Love to have that game on the radio. I'll have Chris get with you. Chris Anderson was the sports information contact for baseball at the time. I'll have Chris get with you and set it all up. We'd love to have you. Just tell us what game you're going to do. Thanks, Coach Sanders. He'd hang up. I'd be like, no, we can't interrupt Sean Hannity or whatever we were carrying at the time. That's what he would do.
Was there ever a point where you got on the horn with the other people at KLIN and said, hey, I just got a call from the coach. We got to get out there. We got to get the tie lines. Someone find me a color commentator.
No, we were like doing Marty back in the day.
Yeah,
so
Marty.
This is way back in the day. So this would happen. Now, we didn't. I think we did twice. We were like, okay, coach, we'll come and do like the game that starts at 5. Well, one of the games that we agreed to do was Chicago State,
yes.
which historically is the largest blowout in the history of college baseball. 50-3.
Did they tweet that picture at you again? Because I feel like
that's
crazy. That's
but,
what happened.
But he would look at the weather. He'd get up at his house. I think he lived out at Capitol Beach. He'd get up at his house. The weather'd be nice, and he'd start making calls to get a team to come to Lincoln and play. Now, and they would give him. So his deal was, we'll let you shower in Memorial Stadium, and we'll feed you. We'll get you a bunch of Valentino's pizzas. That was the deal. And Peru State would come up. Peru State would come up, and they'd play a doubleheader. Play 2 7-inning games. Mel Motley would hit for the cycle.
Were they weren't counted, were they?
Yeah. Back then, you could play as many games as you wanted.
They went on the record?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What was
because he wanted to pick up wins.
Yeah. Okay, that was the benefit.
Plus, why waste a beautiful day?
Gotcha. So the benefit was we need to get. Can you imagine at the end of the year, the NCAA is looking at all the resumes and like, oh my God, Nebraska's got 103 wins this season. Oh my,
they're
good. What a year! What a year for the boys.
I love baseball.
They got 42 wins over Peru State. Wait, they played Peru State 42?
It was like a rotation. It was Peru State, Wayne State, Omaha. Kearney would come when Kearney had a baseball program.
Yeah. Wow.
Gare.
We
got Peru State coming in for 2 today. Weather's going to be beautiful. Going to be a lot of people at the park. Love to have you out there for the game on the radio. I'll have Chris get in touch with you and with all the logistics, make sure the booth is good.
Click.
Then he'd hang up.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have no chance to respond.
Not even a slight combo. Like, hey, okay, so what?
So now you have to start preparing
for
a
call
game.
back to the baseball office.
Yeah, you got to do a sheet, or would you half butt it? Like, what would you do?
I always said so. Then I would call Renee, who is the fantastic, long time, still there today, baseball secretary, Renee Brinkman. She is the MVP of Nebraska baseball for 3 decades.
Okay.
You'd have to call Renee and go, hey, just talk to Coach. We can't do that. And she'd go, I know. I tried to tell him, but he wanted to call you, and he was sitting in his office. And I said, can you tell him that it's just not going to work out? And she said, I'll take care of you.
Did you get any of the pizza or benefits or anything like that? Like you didn't get?
No,
like,
we didn't
a different time.
Like these games that were added, we weren't even going to get like a talent fee.
You didn't get paid for them either?
No, because they were not on the original schedule.
Might get a bottle of water.
Yeah, that's brutal.
You got to go to a baseball
Would he ever
game.
get mad at you if you didn't do them? Or
No, because Renee would explain. They're a radio station.
Okay,
They got some things going on.
they got
there.
deadlines and place, things that are already on the radio. It's a lot of hoops could jump through.
I'd rather listen to baseball.
Here's one thing. This is a big moment in radio. Jack Mitchell just tweeted this out. Jack is down at Broadcast House. That's where I got my start with John Bishop. It was on this date 30 years ago that Nebraska athletics on the radio changed forever. Because it used to be, there were times where there was a time where 3 different radio entities carried Nebraska football.
Is this when it consolidated, or was this birth
well, this
of
is
Sports
back in
Day
the day.
Mid-America?
And then you had the juggernaut KFAB. You had Kent and Gary.
Mm-hmm.
30 years ago today, Pinnacle Sports Network, led by Dale Jensen, who just recently passed away. Paul Aaron was running the company. They won the bidding rights for a 5-year contract, $8.6 million, exclusive rights to broadcast University of Nebraska athletics. First time in 13 years that Omaha station KFAB would not hold the rights to live broadcasts of Nebraska football and men's basketball. 30 years ago today. So that's when Broadcast House in Lincoln got the rights to Nebraska football ahead of the 95 season.
Oh, that worked out nicely.
It also, this company that we are currently at, it changed because KCAR got involved, and they were the Omaha affiliate for Nebraska football, men's basketball, and then we were carrying baseball. So 30 years ago today.
Wow.
Now, baseball was not part of the original deal. KLIN had baseball only along with volleyball. And then as this has grown, more sports were added. And it is, and then what today it is. And the money has definitely gone from 5 years of $8.6 million to the large contract that they have now. But 30 years ago today.
Then.
My favorite part of this article, it has a picture of Jensen, and then under it says Money Man. I think that's funny.
He would own a piece of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Really?
Yeah, lived in Lincoln. He just on sad news, he just recently passed away. He had been living in Arizona. He'd been out of the business for a while. But
it's a big day.
Then it started the whole Paul Aaron, are you going to keep Kent? And then Warren Swain comes in. Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe we get Kent back in the booth for one game. I think that's what Kent would
I'm all
like to
for
do.
it.
I'd like to do one game of
love
football.
that. I would love to hear Kent.
He was standing on the bench
Kent's
last
awesome.
night calling the game.
Yeah,
he got into it.
Kent got animated pretty last night.
I don't blame him.
Same.
I don't blame him whatsoever. Kent's. Man, isn't that kind of awesome too? Like, everybody obviously wants Nebraska basketball to win one NCAA tournament game, so we can just get rid of the stigma, so we can get rid of the story, so it can just happen, so it can be, a little negative piece of information that we keep splurging everywhere. We just want to stop talking about the fact that they've never won an NCAA tournament game. Like, that's a thing. But I love how another aspect of it too is, man, I want them to do it for Kent.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people out there who are big fans of Husker basketball who are like, man, they got to do it for Kent Pavelka. They got to win that game. I've had people say to me, there's nothing more that I want to hear than Kent's call when they finally win an NCAA tournament game. Like, I think that's for an announcer like that to have a connection like that to a team and then also a fan base, I think is pretty damn cool.
Chris writes in the Equitable Bank inbox, would I rather give money to Nebraska basketball, or yes, we don't even need to finish this question, yes, I give it to anything other than Nebraska basketball? Women's Frisbee, yes. The crocheting team, yes.
Women's Frisbee is actually pretty good. Raptor Fed is pretty good. I was friends with the people on the women's Frisbee team. Good.
There really is a women's Frisbee team in
There's
Lincoln?
a men's Frisbee team too, which
do they play
PCU?
Do they play disc golf or
no? It's Ultimate Frisbee.
Okay, kind of.
Ultimate Frisbee. I was on the corn-fed Ultimate Frisbee team for 2.5 seasons.
Way to bury the lead after about 2 months.
They're called Cuddle Raptor is what
Nice.
the women's.
Do they
Frisbee
have
team is
logo?
called. Yeah, they do. They have
They
their
have gear?
own. They have their own gear. They're Nebraska with it's corn. It's like Nebraska gear, but there's a raptor in it. And then
so wear this.
There's I'll bring my Ultimate Frisbee jerseys to the radio station. I was a 2.5-year Ultimate Frisbee player. Whipped it up. It was pretty good. Went to tournaments in Oklahoma, tournaments in Kansas. We came in third place in our sectional, and then we ended up going to regionals and did pretty well there in my final year. And then I had some conflicting stuff, and so I stopped playing Frisbee. I didn't play my senior year. But yeah, it was great. It was an awesome way to work out.
I've learned back-to-back days that Nebraska has a dodgeball team that is nationally ranked and a women's Frisbee team.
They have, so Corn-Fed, which is the men's team, was pretty damn good. Like, we weren't nationally ranked. But
do you have to provide your own Frisbee?
So the Frisbees are provided by the rec, but everything else is kind of you got to pay for it. Like, you got to pay for travel, and sometimes we get vans or whatnot, but it's mainly out of your own pocket. The hotels are the only things that do get paid for. But, like, we're talking about 5 people to a room.
I was going to say, some people sleeping in the bathtub.
Yeah. No, not a joke. That's part of the reason why I stopped doing it. I was absolutely done with, we walked into a Hotel 6 one time, and there was cigarettes on the carpet, like burnt out cigarettes on the carpet when we walked in.
Man, you can't even light them up and enjoy them.
We walked in, and we were like, someone has definitely been killed here. Like that was the vibe of some of the places we stayed at. It was absolutely brutal. And then, some kids would pack their own lunches because they didn't want to pay for food on the trip. So then they would use the microwave and stink up the room for the entire night. It was awful. But there you go. Nebraska also has you know what a broomball is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they have I'm pretty sure they were the national champions in broomball not too long ago. So I played with one of the guys in broomball who was on the broomball team, and he had his own broomball stick and everything. He had his own broomball gloves. I'll tell you something right now. Nebraska takes rec sports incredibly seriously. Rec and club sports.
Oh, I know they do.
They invest. If you win the flag football tournament for rec football, they send you out to nationals. They send you out to Texas if you win enough regional games. Yeah, it's crazy.
They should take the best player from the flag football team and let him try out in the
I
spring.
think that'd be cool. I don't know how it would work out, but it'd be cool. Be cool.
Learn something new every day. All right, we'll come back. We'll put a wrap on this show. No,
I enjoyed it.
Everyone got more educated.
I want to see the logo now.
Yeah, same.
The Cuddle Raptor? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll find the Cuddle Raptor.
Go Cuddle Raptor.
Come back to put a wrap on this Tuesday edition of Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. I had an interaction last night that I'm going to share with you guys. Guy I didn't know, just sitting around a table just chatting.
I thought you got yours in with the guy who shook you down for Girl Scout cookies. I thought you.
No, I haven't talked to him since he said, "Hey, I know you're not using your tickets on the Saturday. I wouldn't mind going." I'm like, "No, I'm not talking to you for a while."
You tell me, hey, boss. You tell me. You give me the word, boss. You give me the word.
Guy I met last night.
Yeah.
Don't know him. He was a friend of a couple of guys I was with. The first thing he looks at me, now he doesn't know who I am. I don't know who he is. He goes, "Push button, start, or key in." That's the first thing he says to me. Now, initially I went, "What?" But the more I thought about it, that is a great conversation starter. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. I got introduced to him, and he pointed at me like, "Hey, are you push button start guy or key in guy?"
Tells a lot about a man and a woman.
And I was like, I've kind of upgraded. I've been back-to-back vehicles, push button.
Yeah.
He's like, I got you. And then I thought about it later. Thought, what a great conversation starter.
So my answer to that question would be, look, push button. But at any moment, I could go to start key. I don't know. I'm one bad crash away from being inserting the key and turning it to the right. I mean, that's what my answer would be. Now, sometimes in my car, the battery will run out, and I have to take out the push. I have to take out the push button. Like I have to remove it, and then my key.
Excuse me.
So this key.
This goes,
right
and
here,
he doesn't have jumper cables.
This key, so I'll have to the battery. This key has a battery, right? So when the battery is full, I just push and it starts, right? But sometimes the battery dies, so then I have to remove the button. The button is removable, and I insert the key and I twist it. So I have
Does
both.
that happen often that you're
After if
just like Karate Kid, you got to kind of push it.
Serviced in a while. It's like once every 2 or 3 years, maybe. That it's only ever happened to me once, and then I had to take the key back to the dealer, and they had to put a new battery in it.
You're flying home, right?
No, I'm driving home on Thursday.
I'm worried about you.
What do you mean you're worried about me?
Well, now your key's not working. You got to let us know you made it home, all right?
Answer to a question. This is surrounding Nebraska basketball and the future of Nebraska basketball when it comes to funds. I'm very fascinated with the revenue sharing if what players are being paid becomes public.
Ooh, it is a public university, and they are getting paid out by the university.
And would there be more volleyball players in the top 10 at Nebraska of athletes and what they make? Because the quarterback will probably always be number one. Will there be more volleyball players or basketball players in the top 10? Because the majority of that top 10 will be football players.
I think it would be 8 football players, 1 volleyball player, 1 basketball player.
So this emailer says, I'd rather give money to Nebraska basketball. Hearing and seeing that Fred had to go beg for money during the portal time frame last year was disheartening as a fan. The good coach can't get what he needs naturally to build a good roster.
Yeah, I mean, he was able to pay for players, and he was able to get guys. It's not as if Fred was picking dudes off of the street in order to fill out a roster. He still was able to get some dudes. Now, I'm not arguing with the fact that he probably doesn't have. I mean, not probably. He doesn't have the NIL or just money in general that other teams, not only within the country but within the conference, have. But I think that Fred definitely could use more money to get better talent. Absolutely. But the struggles of this year, I think, have been more so with not necessarily not being able to get guys, because some of the guys that they've picked and the fact that they don't fit in with the team.
So this has become, because we kind of looked at last night's game, and then we're talking big picture because this is a monster offseason. Because you're going to have a lot of spots available, is high school recruiting. High school recruits get ignored. There's still places where you have to recruit the high school guy. You could right down the street here. Creighton has done a nice job of blending the portal guy, the 1 or 2 year portal guy, mostly 2, and then they have gone strong in high school because they can, because they have something established. Okay, they're a brand, they had success, they can recruit to that, and they also can show the next high school big man, hey, Ryan Kalkbrenner was here for 42 years, and this is what we were able to do to him. And even as a older guy, he's going to be drafted.
Yeah. He's going to probably go in the second round. But
that all starts at the top.
It does.
Fred's embracing of the high school basketball player and letting them play, it just hasn't worked out. I mean, Jamel Lloyd, remember him?
Ramel Lloyd, yeah.
Ramel Lloyd.
Didn't work out.
Does he still have a radio show in Lincoln?
I don't think he does.
Okay. You have one local product, and it's not like and in Nebraska, it's not like they avoid high school recruiting. I mean, they went heavily towards Bynum, who was at Bryan, and now he committed to Ohio State. They've gone hard after high school kids. Rhymes is coming in. A lot of people internally like him a lot. But if you're going to recruit high school players, you get them here, and you got to give them an ability to play. Like, I thought Janowski would play this year. I loved him as a shooter coming out of Wisconsin. I think that was a big pickup for Nebraska. But they decided to redshirt him because they didn't think that he could crack into the top 8 because they were older.
Yeah.
They are old. They wanted to stay old. Well, you have to make – if you get the right high school player, you have to give them an opportunity to succeed and fail. And that all starts at the top. We can say, well, they should recruit high school guys. But if the head coach isn't comfortable with building like that, but he'll go and recruit them, but he won't play them.
Yeah.
And
you're not going to develop them.
He doesn't want to spend the time. No.
And he's got to win now, too.
Well, but also, I think Fred pays a lot of attention, more attention to the top 7 on his roster than the bottom 7, because he thinks we can just replace the bottom 7.
Fred was at a point, Coach Hoiberg was at a point where he needed to win and win now, that his job was getting to the point where the clock was kind of ticking in that fourth year. And I think he looked around and said, man, he did try and recruit high school guys early on when he first came here. I mean, heck, he got Bryce McGowan's, but that's what happens, right? When you get a really, really good high school guy, where do they go? They don't stick around. They go to the NBA.
I wouldn't use him as an example.
Sure, I know. But regardless, he tried, he did recruit those high school guys. It didn't lead to any success. He went to the portal. It led to more success. Now he's kind of saying, all right, the transfer portal is working. We're able to win. We're able to get to the tournament. People are happy when we get to the tournament. I'll keep going to the portal. And so he keeps doing that. But I agree with you in the fact that Nebraska can get to the tournament almost every year by going into the transfer portal and getting guys who either had high production in lower conferences or have upside into higher conferences. And they can get in every year as an 8, 9, or 10. But they're never going to be a program that has that long-term success of consistently being a 4, 5, 6 seed, right? That you kind of can just shoe in or assume. It's not even hey, I wonder what they're going to do this year. No. They will never be a program where you just know they'll be in the tournament if they don't build from the bottom up, if they don't have some core high school guys, at least in my opinion. And Fred has Coach Hoiberg now. As he gets more success through the portal and they start making the tournament more, you hope that he can better blend the high school recruits and the transfer portal recruits so we can get that instant success, but also build that foundation to have the long-term success.
I'm sure there'll be more to talk about tomorrow. It's Creighton game day tomorrow. What else is going on today? Other than it's going to be beautiful outside and people will be golfing and going to the car wash.
It's a decent night. Wisconsin plays tonight for college basketball.
Iowa is at Illinois.
I looked at the slate yesterday.
Dallas and the Lakers tonight.
Northwestern goes on the road, plays Minnesota.
Nobody cares about Northwestern.
You just brought up Wisconsin and Washington and Iowa and all of them, and I can't. I mean, that's a Big Ten.
Nobody cares about Northwestern basketball.
There was one ranked matchup.
Ask them.
I thought I saw.
I tried
today.
I tried, but then they keep letting me down. I was like, all right, I can
also,
get behind this
really
team.
not that great of a slate tonight.
A lot of NFL GMs and coaches today talking to the combine.
Yes.
A lot of team.
My guy talks at the top of the 11 o'clock hour.
Your guy's a good GM.
I'm excited to just sit back, relax, and write my notes about the combine this weekend. I'm excited.
All right, we'll see you again on Wednesday.
On Wednesday, not Monday.
See at 6. I know I'm going backwards. Crossover's coming up next. Gary, Matt, and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.